Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of What If Naruto Became a One-Man Team. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe and also comment your thoughts as it inspires me to make more such videos, and remember to check out my playlist section for other interesting stories. So let's get started. Chapter 8. What Matters Most. Throughout their trip home the silence was only broken by Kakashi as he gave the rare perverted giggle as he read his book. Kiba managed to release one as well when he was able to read a few lines over the Jonin's shoulder before he was told to pay attention to where he was going just in time to miss the tree he was headed for. Other than that, the only action that took place were the glares that Sakura and Sasuke sent between their sensei and the two at the rear of the group. It had only taken until the bridge was out of sight for Sasuke's smile to be wiped away as he realized that both his sensei and his new rival had gotten more attention than him. Sakura just picked up on his mood and followed like an obedient puppy. Naruto and Haku paid no attention though as they sped through the trees in a straight line towards Konoha. They decided that the forest would be the best place to travel now that all of the genin knew how to stick to the trees. It was less of a risk that way than to be seen traveling the roads, and truth be told they had all had enough action for a while. When they were close enough to the village they dropped down to the road before entering so as to not arouse suspicion. After all, any person seen coming or leaving via any means other than the main gate was to be treated as an enemy nin until proven otherwise. So unless someone had a great desire to meet the Konoha interrogation squad, it was advised that everyone use the main gate. Upon seeing the group entering, the two Chunin at the guard post waved them over. "Good afternoon, Kakashi-san. We would have let you pass freely, but there seems to be an unfamiliar face among your group. As visitors must sign in, we'll be forced to hold you here until she does." "Meh. Go ahead, Kakashi-san. I'll make sure Haku-chan gets signed in. After all, she is under my protection, and since you aren't my sensei you have no obligation to stay. I'll see you at the Hokage office for debriefing soon." Naruto motioned them to continue on, noticing Kakashi's forceful hand on Sasuke's shoulder as he led his team away. Turning back towards the two Chunin and Haku, he took her step by step through the sign-in process before making their way to the Hokage tower. Little did they know that it was all the delay that Kiba would need to start the next small upset in Naruto's life. During their walk to the tower, Kakashi's team encountered one pale-eyed Hyuga heiress as she was walking towards the gate. Signaling that he needed a couple seconds, Kiba bounded over to her before anyone could object. Leaning down he whispered in her ear, "You may want to greet your boyfriend and his new woman. I hear they even slept together during our mission. I know this probably hurts, but if you need someone to talk to, I'm always available." Grinning he went back to his team and they continued to the tower, leaving a dumbstruck Hinata standing in the middle of the street not knowing what to do. "Kiba, what did you say to Hinata?" Kakashi fixed a glare on the boy who shrunk back a bit but stood his ground. "Personal business, Kakashi-sensei. Don't worry about it." Though he knew it was nothing good, there was nothing Kakashi could do about it. Their mission was over and what was said couldn't be a threat to anything that happened already. Sighing he continued on. Due to that small delay they met up with Naruto and Haku as they were about to enter the tower. "Oi! I thought you would already be inside. What kept you?" Kiba-kun had to stop and talk to Hinata about something that apparently couldn't wait. Kakashi again fixed the boy with a glare followed by Naruto and Haku, but his own grin was mirrored on the faces of Sasuke and Sakura. Something is not going to end well soon. Before any fights could break out in the middle of the street, Kakashi ushered them all inside. As they made their way up the steps, Haku tried to comfort Naruto any way she could. "Since this is most likely about us, I'll go with you to help sort out whatever," he said to her. "Thank you, Haku-chan." He would have smiled if he didn't have such a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. That would have to wait until later though, as they knocked on the door to the Hokage's office before being allowed to enter. "So I take it the mission to wave went all right, and I see there is a new face with you, Kakashi-kun. Care to explain?" Sarutobi rose an inquiring eyebrow at the man, urging him to spit out the results. "Hokage-sama. The mission was a success. The bridge builder Tazuna was escorted and kept safe until the completion of the bridge to wave. On the way we met up with the two missing nin called the Demon Brothers. Once they were taken care of, we found that Wave was currently being held under the watchful eye of the tyrannical shipping merchant Gato and mercenaries under his hire. After the encounter with the Demon Brothers, we were unfortunate enough to encounter the missing Nin Zabuza alias Demon of the Mist. During the fight, Naruto-san showed up and saved me from the Suiro no Jutsu I managed to get caught in. The fight ended in a draw as Zabuza escaped with the help of an assistant, though injured, and we were unable to pursue due to my chakra exhaustion. We were able to later neutralize Zabuza and his assistant along with Gato and the mercenaries he had brought with him. Afterward, a few of us were able to find an encampment of mercenaries that were prepaid to attack the village of Wave, and were able to neutralize them as well, thus completing the ongoing protection from Gato for the remainder of the mission. Kakashi bowed after his explanation, signaling his completion. The Hokage turned towards Naruto. Do you have anything to add, Naruto-kun? Hi. However, there are too many ears at the moment for my report. Hiruzen rose an eyebrow at this, then the other when he saw Kakashi lower his head. Okay then. Does anyone else have anything to add before you are dismissed? Sasuke stepped forward, earning a groan from a few of those gathered, which he ignored as he spoke. Hokage-san, I would like to. Sasuke, you will address Hokage-sama as his title dictates. Kakashi narrowed his eyes as he spoke to the back of Sasuke's head. Sasuke just let out a sniff of dismissal before continuing. As I was saying, I would like to bring to your attention that the backup you sent us was insufficient, unnecessary, and at least one point endangered the success of the mission at large. During a situation of heightened tension, Uzumaki Naruto made threatening advances on the sole survivor of a clan, namely myself. I demand that measures be taken to eliminate this action from happening again, including, but not limited to, detainment in a holding cell for an undetermined amount of time or removal from the shinobi ranks altogether. The killing intent in the room was beginning to raise, and the majority was focused on the Uchiha. Though he was visibly sweating from it, he maintained his position and waited for a reply. After a moment of silence that was apparently too much for him to handle, he decided to pile more incriminating evidence against the blonde. Furthermore, because of his actions, both myself and one of my teammates were restrained for the remainder of the mission, causing one of the top clans in Konoha to be subjected to the humiliation of captivity by his own village. I demand that a similar treatment be sentenced upon those responsible for such action. Along with another long pause, Sasuke was quickly losing his temper. Answer me, damn it. Sasuke. You would dare speak to the Hokage like that? Remove yourself from this room before I remove you from it myself. Kakashi was in no mood to deal with this now. No. Sasuke-kun is right. Naruto Baka almost ruined everything, and because of him we were unreasonably restrained. He should be put away where he was always meant to be. By this point Naruto was starting to growl. The only thing keeping him from leaping at the two was Haku's hand on his shoulder. Before anyone could make the headache any bigger, though, there was another person that a few of them forgot they were in the presence of. Silence. Everyone's head turned to the aged Hokage. He was old, yes, but the authority behind his voice was more than any of them could match. Uchiha Sasuke, if you ever address me with such a tone again, I will have you thrown in a cell for insubordination. That goes for your little outburst as well, Haruno Sakura. Kiba, Sasuke and Sakura, remove yourself from this office immediately. I have business that I need to finish with those remaining. Despite being yelled at by the most powerful ninja in the village, each of those were able to flash a grin to the blonde on their way out. Two of them knowing that by the end of the day he could very well find himself chained to a wall for risking the safety of the last of the Uchiha, while the last knew he would be in dire straits with Hinata soon enough. As the door shut, everyone let out a few deep breaths in an attempt to get their tempers under control. Sarutobi motioned for them to sit in the chairs before him. As they sat, Sarutobi fixed each with a glare before settling on Kakashi. Explain. It was only one word, but the threat behind it was unmistakable. Hokage-sama. From the first moment that Naruto-san showed up on this mission, Sasuke seemed to want to smear his name into the ground. When Naruto was injured by a random mercenary's blind attack, I assigned my team to treat him while I went after the man. Upon returning, I found them not only not helping him, but also attempting to keep Tazuna and his family from aiding him as well. That night they had tried repeatedly to get to him while I was asleep for unknown actions according to Tazuna himself, who offered to stand watch and alert me if the others tried anything while I was asleep. The next morning they again showed distaste towards Naruto, though they did not come out and voice it openly. That morning the bridge was attacked by Zabuza and Haku with Gado's mercenaries, and Gado himself making an appearance later. I sent Sasuke and Kiba after Haku while I myself took Zabuza and Sakura guarded Tazuna. I found out later that Sasuke had gotten into a bad situation and used Kawarimi with Kiba to get himself out of it, resulting in Kiba getting hit with the attack that was intended for the Uchiha. All three could see the anger forming on the old man's face as Kakashi's story unfolded. I will allow Naruto-san or Haku-san to fill in the gap there, as I was enshrouded in Zabuza's mist technique and wasn't able to see what was going on. He nodded to the two, signaling for them to take over. It was Haku who chose to speak first. Hokage-sama, I would first like to thank you for the excellence of some of your ninja, though certain others are not so worthy of praise. While I am none too taken with Kiba-san, at least he did not use his teammates to save his own skin. After the boy had been taken out by my first attack, the Uchiha spoke of it being an honor to be sacrificed for the sake of one of his breeding. I was disgusted, and for the first time in my life I felt that there was a person in front of me that was despicable enough to die by my hand. I used my strongest attack on him and wrought pain upon him using my Senbon to strike his pressure points. It didn't seem enough to give him a quick death, but when I decided to go in for the kill I was stopped by Naruto-kun. Haku nodded over to the blonde, signaling for him to continue with the story. Hokage Gigi, I first met Haku-chan in the forest near Wave prior to the bridge confrontation. During our confrontation I was able to discover that she had a memory modification seal on her neck. Naruto dug in his pocket for a second before pulling out a sheet of paper detailing the seal and handed it to the old man. I let her go at that point with the promise that I would give her back her memories. The morning of that encounter I woke up and soon found a disturbance in the house and found that some of Gado's lackeys were attempting to kidnap Tazuna-san's daughter and about to kill her son. After dealing with them I made it to the bridge in time to stop Haku-chan's attack. After she agreed to it I gave her a seal to null out the one on her neck. Again he pulled out a sheet of paper, this one with the temporary counter seal on it. I would have forced it on regardless, but she was trusting enough to apply it herself. He looked at Haku expecting her to want to continue, but by the look on her face she had no desire to relive that moment. She simply waved him to continue in her stead. To simplify it, Haku-chan found out Zabuza wasn't who she thought he was, and she ended up being the one to kill him. Once he was dead though, Gado showed up with his mercenaries. With Kakashi low on chakra, Kiba and Sasuke knocked out of commission, Sakura being well. Sakura and Haku-chan still feeling the after effects of the temporary seal. I was the only one able to hold them off to any extent, as I had been given a little reprieve between my battle at the house and my arrival at the bridge. Creating clones I was able to take out or hold off the assault until Kakashi was well enough to join in. Shortly thereafter the villagers showed up to defend their homes and Gado decided to make his escape. Leaving Kakashi to defend the bridge, I went after Gado and relieved him of his need for breathing. When I returned to the bridge there were no more mercenaries left standing and only a few villagers had suffered injuries. Kakashi-san and Haku-chan were attending to Kiba and Sasuke while Sakura stood by crying. Kakashi jumped in at that point and continued for them. Sakura was angry with Haku-san for hurting Sasuke, so she attempted to attack her. She failed of course, but then there was another short argument when Sasuke and Kiba woke. Again ending with no casualties save for me knocking Sasuke unconscious for his own safety. Kiba was rather angry for what happened, and with Sasuke egging him on it could have ended badly had I not acted. So why knock Sasuke out and not Kiba? Sarutobi knew why, but he was juggling between happiness and anger now. It would be fun to see the man squirm a bit. He was closer. Anyway, Naruto-san made some clones to clean up the bridge while we guarded Tazuna-san, and he took Haku-san to the house. Before leaving he told me he would need to talk to me privately. After that he left and we watched as his clones sifted through what they could find and sealed it away. At one point Sasuke attacked one of the clones and attempted to take the scroll it had been sealing items into before I caught him and told him that because of his actions earlier he would be entitled to none of the items found. Of course he huffed about it, but there was little he could do when I placed myself between him and the clones. Naruto-kun, what was it that you were gathering from those men? The Hokage inquired. Weapons mostly, some documents, money, whatever they had that looked to be useful. Why take the time to seal all of that? Wouldn't it have been easier to dispose of it all instead of carrying it around? And just how good are you with seals? Whoa, one at a time here, Gigi. Let's see. For the first two, well, it's a habit I've grown into, I guess. I mean, we both know I'm not the richest of people, or the most popular for that matter. I learned the hard way not to take anything for granted. As you should already know from before, I collect anything of use or value. As for the last part, I'm no master, but I'm probably better than most people. It wasn't the most detailed answer, but he really didn't have anything to gauge it on. Anyhow, when we got back to the house I removed Haku-chan's memory seal permanently and let her rest while I took Kakashi-san aside. When I had killed Gato he was making a statement that killing him wouldn't matter. He gave me the impression that there could be another attack ready to hit wave from somewhere. After letting Kakashi-san know, and figuring out how to divide into the most capable teams, which Naruto was able to make a better composition of those available than myself, if I might add. Kakashi couldn't help but smile at the boy who grinned, sheepishly, back remembering their small bonding experience. Thank you, Kakashi-san. When we were done we noticed that it was far too quiet in the dining room, where the rest were gathered when I had pulled Kakashi aside. Naruto's smile left him once again. We both raced upstairs and were just in time to catch the kunai that Sasuke and Sakura were about to thrust into Haku-chan as she slept. Kakashi-san kept the bubblegum princess at bay while I kept Sasuke-tem from her. He didn't get the picture though and continued to attempt to attack her, at least until Kiba knocked him out. Kakashi followed up on soon after with his captive. After rearranging the groups in 2 teams of 2 we tied up the Uchiha and Haruno and set about a patrol rotation for the next 4 days until one of my clones finally found the mercenary encampment that I had guessed Gato was talking about. The tale was once again handed over to Kakashi. When Naruto came back with the location of the camp, one left Kiba to guard the house, instructing him to let the other 2 loose in case he would need backup. Haku-san, Naruto-san and myself assaulted the camp that night, and with precision that I can honestly say I have never seen on most Chunin teams, we planned our attack and decimated the enemy with few injuries to ourselves. The pride at this point was rolling off of him in waves. It was clear to Hiruzen that Kakashi would have loved to have these 2 on his team, but it was too late for that unfortunately as the teams were already formed. It was obvious that something would have to be done about Team 7 though. Just like Naruto had done earlier, Kakashi's attitude turned sour in remembrance of the next part of their story. We were all tired from the battle, but we made our way back to the house and that's when there was yet another turn from the perfect mission. With a small argument with the newly released duo, Sasuke once again attempted to attack Haku-san by rushing Naruto then ducking behind him to try to stab her with a dinner knife. He was only slightly foiled by Naruto showing the true purpose of Kawarimi, as he used it on Haku and took the hit for her. Luckily with their height difference he got struck in a non-lethal area. Naruto-san proceeded to knock Sasuke out of the house as his tenant began to act up. Hiruzen's expression now mirrored that of his guests. The council would not like hearing of this and he was sure that they would find out about it soon enough. I tried to stop him, but in the end it was Haku that got him to settle down. They looked at Haku who blushed strongly, not wanting to reveal what she said that night. She shook her head refusing to give them anything. Sarutobi smiled at her and waved her to him. She hesitated, but complied and was soon standing next to him. If you don't feel comfortable repeating it openly you may whisper it to me, but I need to know what you did to calm him down. His tenant isn't the most agreeable of things. Anything that can settle it is a very valuable piece of information to us, so please, share it with me. Haku blushed again but leaned down and cupped her hands so the others wouldn't see or hear. All they saw was her closing her eyes in embarrassment as Sarutobi's smile got wider. Thank you Haku-chan. You have no idea how glad I am to hear that from anyone. You may take your seat again. Once she was seated, Kakashi continued. After that, we tied up Sasuke and Sakura in separate rooms and posted a guard so there was no chance of them getting loose. The rest of the mission was pretty easy, with the only other mission relative event happening when Naruto sent clones to clean up our last battle and search for anything of use. After that was celebrations, then the journey home. They all looked towards Naruto for anything he might want to fill in. Oh, well, first there are a few holes that I'll fill in with these few scrolls. These are the heads of Kafu Oba and Tomatsu Uesugi. The Hokage and Kakashi both rose an eyebrow at this, while Haku wore a grin of pride. Kafu was a missing nin of Kurigakure, Jonin rank and rather famous for the sword I now carry apparently. Kakashi-san, Zabuza and Tomatsu seemed impressed with it at least. I admit he was a lucky kill, as he never expected a genin to lure him into a trap. Just like I never expected a jonin to fall for it. Tomatsu on the other hand was easy for a Chunin. He was with the lackeys that tried to kidnap Tsunami-san, but he tried to run when he saw the katana of his former comrade. He never really had a chance, since the only jutsu he threw at me was easily avoided, and for a Chunin level ninja he was rather slow. As for the clone search parties, he looked through a storage scroll he had before picking another scroll out of one of the seals. Here are all of the documents that I believe could have interesting information regarding the safety of the village. If you would like, I can look into them along with that other project I have going on. Unless someone else is free to look through them now. He handed the scroll to the Hokage, who looked through it to find that, like the other scrolls he received from the boy, everything was categorized and organized. That is quite alright, Naruto-kun. I will find someone to look over this. We've finished our end of your other mission, so there are some people free to look at this now. Perhaps later they will go over your other findings as well. Oh, and that person has agreed to see you, so when you and they have time I will organize a meeting. Okay, Gigi-san. I'll make sure to contact you soon about that. Oh, Haku-chan, I almost forgot. I also have the Kubikiri Hako here if you want it. Since you are the one who killed Zabuza, it's yours by rights. Haku cautiously took the scroll and stared at it for a few minutes before shaking her head and thrusting it back into Naruto's hands. No, I don't want anything to remind me of him. They could see the hurt in her eyes, so they didn't press the matter. Understanding her want for detachment from her former tormentor, he decided it would be best to find a way to dispose of the weapon despite his desire to keep it for its undoubted value. After pocketing the scroll holding the cleaver once more, Naruto turned back to the Sandaime. Well, back to the mission, though there is just one more thing to add to your attention. He brought out yet another scroll. I was able to find Gato's base of operations in Wave. This holds the documentation taken from that place. The food stores and money that was held there I split amongst the people of Wave, since it was mostly theirs anyway. Gato kept extensive logs of all his dealings. It seems he was a bit obsessive over where all his money came from and went to, so it was rather easy to get everyone their money back. At the bottom of the scroll you will find what they would have owed for an S-rank mission. You may not have listed it as such, but there was more than enough money left to cover the cost. Other than that, you should find some interesting bits of information in there. I think that about sums it up, Gigi-san. All that is left is Haku-chan's status and what you plan on doing with her. Going through the new scroll, Sarutobi was very pleased with what he was seeing. It seemed Gato made dealings in many enemy countries, including Iwa, Kumo and the new village of Otogakure. There were also extensive notes about exactly what was being traded where and with whom. Some of it was unsettling, but it was better than being misinformed, or worse, not knowing at all. Setting that aside, he turned his attention to the only female in the room. Yes, Haku-chan. I will not be able to save you from some minor questioning, but due to you having had altered, and recently released, memories coupled with the fact that you assisted greatly on a mission against those that you were originally partnered with, it should be no more than we normally would do for someone who simply wishes to switch villages. I know you could technically be listed as a traitor, but with no village affiliation you are not a missing nin, nor can we justly label you as a traitor of a village that doesn't exist. However, to save you from being listed as a civilian traitor, I would like to enlist you as a kunoichi of Konoha if you would like to. Your skills are quite obviously higher than an academy student. As long as you can do the graduation test and agree to pledge loyalty to this village, I will instate you as a genin rank kunoichi and put you on the only team that has an available spot. He grinned and nodded to Naruto. Haku's eyes went wide as they started to moisten. Hi. Hokage-sama, I would be honored to be a ninja of Konoha. She bowed down before the man who was giving her a place to call home. She then turned to Naruto and bowed to him as well. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Without your help I would have never known anything but a life on the run. I owe you more than you can imagine. She rushed over to him and hugged him tightly. Haku-chan, don't worry about it. To see someone saved from a living hell and be allowed happiness is more than enough of a reward for me. Now if you'll excuse me, Hokage-sama, Kakashi-san, Haku-chan. There are some things that I have missed immensely while I was gone, and I would like to attend to them now. With a nod from the old man he bowed and left the office. Well, he never ceases to amaze, does he? The Hokage smiled as he watched the door close before making a small note on a scroll. Well, back to business. Kakashi, before you get too settled, please take Haku-chan to the interrogation department with this note. Make sure it's not Anko that gets this. I get enough sob stories from the prisoners about her, I don't need any from our allies. Chuckling, Kakashi led a suddenly nervous Haku out of the room and left Hiruzen to his thoughts. Never ceases to amaze indeed. Just how far can you go, Naruto? Shaking his head, he got back to the real issue that would be headed his way soon enough. When Kakashi's team sees Naruto walking around freely, someone was bound to show up, and more than likely that someone would be with a summons to a council meeting. With that in mind, he brought out a few fresh scrolls and began writing. If they were going to call him into a meeting over this, he was going to be prepared. Naruto rushed through the streets of Konoha intent on finding his target. Under a guise, he had visited the Hyuga and found out that Hinata was somewhere out in the village. He had spent almost an hour already trying to find her, but to no avail. Deciding that it might be a good idea to shower a bit before searching further, he made his way to his apartment only to find the one he was seeking crouched at his door with her head buried in her knees. Hinata-chan. He heard a sob before she rose her head to reveal a tear-streaked face. Hinata. What happened? Did someone hurt you? Tell me who and I'll make them apologize. She stood as he got closer. Hinata. Please, tell me what's wrong. I want to help you. Please let me help you. He repeated almost frantically. Smack. He was stunned. Shy Hinata, his girlfriend, smacked him across the face and was now glaring at him. He took a half step back from surprise, but she closed the distance and got right into his face. You swine. Lowlife. Cheating baka. How could you? I thought you finally accepted me, and now I find out that you went running around with some hussy while you were away on a mission. Hinata-chan, it wasn't like that. I swear. Naruto tried to start an explanation, but she wasn't going to let him get that far. With his shock at her harsh words, he left too large of an opening for her to continue her assault. You slept with her. Oh, that's not good. You took a knife to the chest for her. Not good at all. I thought I knew you, but I was wrong. You are the most vile person ever. Naruto was now the one in tears as each word cut into him deeper than any knife. Hinata-chan. Don't you ever call me that again. You have no right to even think of my name. You are despicable scum. Don't even think you are worthy of. Smack. Neither of them had seen it coming. Now Hinata was the one who was stunned speechless as she slowly put her hand to her reddening cheek and looked into the eyes of her assaulter. Pale lavender eyes, still red from crying, met deep brown eyes that showed anger and pity. How dare you belittle him? If you think so little of him, it's you who aren't worthy. You. Hinata's eye turned from stunned to furious as she realized who this new person was. You, she repeated with more hatred behind it. You're the hussy that took Naruto-kun away from me. You slept with him and pranced around with him. Well, I hope you're happy knowing that he left one to be with another. I hope you can live knowing he could do it again with you as the victim. She turned to leave but was forced to turn back as a strong hand pulled her arm around. Let's get some things straight here, little girl. Yes, we slept in the same futon, but it was me that crawled in with him, while he was asleep, and we did nothing but sleep. As soon as he was awake, he freaked out and told me that he was with you. Like a gentleman, he stayed turned around until I got dressed. He took a knife for me because it was the right thing to do. He is kind enough to not let a comrade or a friend die in front of him if he can help it. Had you been the target, I know he would have done the same. He defended you against those other two boys on Kakashi's team numerous times, and no matter how many advances I made, he turned me down because he already had you. I bet it was that mutt that told you about it too. At Hinata's wince, it was obvious where her information came from. If you are that stupid to take the word of someone else over his, then maybe he is better off with me. At least I will trust him enough to not take the word of someone else without hearing his side too. Come on, Naruto-kun. Let's go. I think we've seen enough of this one's true colors. I swear with every new person I meet in this place, it tarnishes my view of a ninja, or a human. She turned to leave, grabbing Naruto's arm as she passed while Hinata sank to her knees with new tears streaming down her face. He never abandoned me and I just tore out his heart. She's right. I don't deserve him. He's been hurt so much and I just added to it. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I'm so sorry. No. Haku jerked a bit as Naruto's unmoving body forced her to stop. Come on, Naruto-kun, you can show me around the village. No. He shook out of her grip and slowly made his way forward. Sinking to his knees, he gently took Hinata's head in his hands and rose her face to meet his eyes. I won't leave my Hinata-chan like this. I love her too much for it to end. With renewed hope, Hinata met his eyes just in time to see him get far too close for her to see him properly. She tried to move her head back to keep him in her vision, but was stopped from moving at all when she felt something touch her lips. It took her another moment to register what was happening, but she soon realized that it was his lips touching hers. He was kissing her, actually kissing her. Her heart fluttered as it beat faster as she held onto him, trying to get closer, as close as she possibly could. She was still in turmoil that she had said such mean things to him, but he was accepting her back even though she slapped him and yelled such deceitful things at him. Bringing up the memories of what she had just said made her falter and try to pull away, breaking the kiss as she turned her head in embarrassment and self-loathing. Naruto wouldn't have it though, as he wound his arms around her and pulled her tightly to him. Never, never scare me like that again, Hinata-chan. I would face down all of Konoha before I would want to hear such things come out of your mouth again. Naruto-kun. Sniff, she was alright. I don't deserve you. Please, please never leave me. IW won't ever doubt you again. Hinata couldn't take it anymore as she buried her face in his chest and sobbed. They stayed like that in the middle of the hall for a few minutes until they were forced back to reality. Cough. If you two are finished, I would still like a tour of this village. Both teens blushed as they looked sheepishly at Haku before sighing. Naruto recalled why he was at his apartment in the first place. Well, I would like to take a shower first if you don't mind. We did just get back from a mission after all. Oh, by the way, Hinata, this is Haku-chan. Haku-chan, this is my girlfriend Hinata-chan. It's nice to finally meet you, Hinata-san, though I hope you're not always so quick to jump to conclusions. I would say I'd join you, Naruto-kun, but I don't think Hinata-san would like that very much. Haku grinned at the girl's attempt at an angry expression. Since she just finished crying and was still hugging onto Naruto tightly, it turned out as more of a possessive pout instead. I will show Haku-san around while you get cleaned up, Naruto-kun. Besides, I have some things I want to talk with her about. We'll come back later and maybe get something to eat together. Hinata's eyes never left Haku, causing Naruto to give a small nervous chuckle. Oh okay, Hinata. I'll leave a clone here in case I need to go out. Try not to kill each other, please. He slowly unlocked and backed into his apartment, keeping them both in his view until he had to shut the door. The entire time neither of them moved or even looked away from the other. Sighing, he settled for his fate of not knowing and just prayed that he wouldn't find weapons stuck through the wall when he reopened the door after he was done. He made his way to his bathroom, creating a clone on the way just in case it would need to hop out and stop any bloodshed. After so much mental stress in the past month, he really needed some time to clean off and meditate. Out in the hall, Haku and Hinata were still staring at each other until the later suddenly bowed, surprising Haku. Thank you, Haku-san. I was blinded by my emotions at the possibility of losing the one I had sought after for so long and almost made the biggest mistake of my life. I was foolish to take Kiba-san's word at face value without conferring with Naruto-kun before I acted, but when I saw him my emotions at the thought of being rejected took control. If you hadn't come I would have lost the better part of my life, so thank you for setting things right. I will never be able to repay the debt I owe to you. Quote. You really do love him, don't you? Not that I can't see why. He really is a great guy. Loyal to a fault and thinks of others over himself, even when those others are opposing him. I can easily say that my life would be much different had he not helped me. Your boyfriend there freed me from a life that was little more than servitude. Without his help I would be either dead right now, or still not know the truth of my past. It's true that I tried to force myself on him, even after knowing he had you, but you can't really blame me for that. You would be hard-pressed to find someone so great. Haku turned silent and hung her head. There seemed to be no place for her here even though she was finally free of her pseudo-past. He is my one and only. Even though I recently found out that I know nearly nothing about him at all, he was the one I got my strength from and my drive to get through my academy days. I would see him constantly striving to practice, and though I am sure that was all an act now, back then it was still an example of someone trying to overcome the fate they were given. When I finally got to know him after we graduated he was a completely different person, but in a weird way he was still the same. He didn't strive for attention as much, but the same confidence was there, stronger than ever. It was like his age doubled and he was suddenly overqualified for his rank yet humble enough to stay on the level of the rest of us. He gives me more strength now than he ever gave me before and I couldn't imagine being without him, even though I almost forced myself to do just that a few minutes ago. Both girls were slightly blushing at their memories of the blonde. Haku was the first to come out of her little trance and back to reality. Well, anyway, how about that tour? If I'm going to live here I'll need to know where to get food, clothes, gear and I'll really need to find a place to stay. Hokage-sama said I can use a donated apartment for a couple months, but I'm going to have to get a place for myself soon. Oh, you also might like to know that I'll be on a team with Naruto-kun, so I'll be sure to watch his back. That way you won't have to worry about him not coming home from a mission. Also, there are a few other things you might want to know about his strength. He took out 2 missing nin on that mission, one Jonin level and the other Chunin. He also has some weird fascination with collecting anything of use. You really need to see the katana he got off that Jonin though. He has it sealed away right now, but it's black with a red sheath. It's a bit long for him but the sight of it is more than enough to give a good scare. He also seems to have some hideout in the village that no one but himself and the Hokage know about. Hinata was stunned. She knew Naruto was strong, but to take on a Jonin level missing nin as a genin would be suicide. Naruto-kun, just how strong are you really? That aside she was a bit let down that Haku got to be on his team, but as long as she didn't try to steal Naruto from her it would be fine. Over the next couple hours the two girls made their way around, stopping every now and then as Hinata pointed out the main areas of the village. She had never really gone into most of the places before getting together with Naruto. Being a main branch Hyuga meant that she never really had to do her own shopping. That was one of the things that she and Naruto did together now though, and she loved it. He even bought her some new clothes as a gift, though she couldn't wear them except for in the privacy of her own room. Even so it was a nice gesture. The only place that she couldn't show Haku was where to find a place to live as she had never had the need to do so. With little else to do they had just mingled around for a bit. Getting to know one another. Naruto aside they found they had a few things in common themselves. Among them was their main focus of interest, healing, specifically herbal remedies and ointments. Trading ideas and self-taught remedies to each other, they slowly made their way back to Naruto's apartment. They soon found themselves outside of his room knocking on his door waiting for an answer. The door opened revealing Naruto, which Hinata was about to embrace, but before she saw his eyes widen as she heard a thud right before a cloth was set over her mouth and nose making her lightheaded before darkness took her. After he was cleaned Naruto decided to head to his hideout for a quick stop. It was getting towards dinner time, so no one would be around the entrance as they would be preparing meals, or getting ready for a night out. He was proven correct as he easily slipped into his domain. Only a few clones were made this time so he wouldn't defeat the purpose of his being here. As they got to work sorting through the paperwork he had laying around concerning the notes from Orochimaru's lair, he set himself on an oversized pillow and began his meditation. It wasn't until a couple of hours later that he was snapped out of his trance as a clone dispelled. It took a while to sift through all the information, but when he did he was in a panic. Faster than ever he bolted out into the waning light and towards his apartment. He didn't even stop to see if the door was locked as he slammed through it into the room. Inside he found a bound and gagged Hinata and Haku. Both were unconscious but alive and looked unharmed. Quickly untying them he tried shaking them awake. When that didn't work he made a clone and hoisted them on his back before taking off to the hospital. The nurse at the lobby desk was jolted out of her nail filing when the loud crash of the front door slamming open signaled someone was in a hurry. When she looked up her lips pursed in distaste. "And what do you want here?" She glared hard at the boy, not even seeming to notice his companions. "Shut the hell up and get me 2 beds. I found these 2 unconscious and tied up. Now get them some help before I do it myself, and I promise that I won't be nearly as careful about it as you would." She was about to retort when she noticed who it was he was carrying. "Just what did you do to them, you monster?" She hurried over and grabbed them, none too gently, off his backs to get them away from him as soon as possible. "Rest assured I will let Hokage-sama know what you've done. Just shut up and get them some help." Naruto screamed at her before speeding out the door towards the Hokage building. He was coming up to the base of the tower as 4 Anbu-dressed ninja dropped around him. He scowled at them. "Get the hell out of my way. You are a tricky one, Uzumaki Naruto. You slipped away from us last time, but we won't fall for the same tricks twice," one of them stated. It was then that Naruto took in their attire. They looked just like the 4 that had tried to take him before his mission to Wave. "So, you're the dogs of that guy Danzo, huh? Sorry to disappoint you, but I have no plans on seeing any more of him than my clone already has." He readied himself for a fight. 4, possibly Anbu-ranked ninja, against one of him. The odds weren't good, but he would give it his best shot, cause he'd be damned if he'd go quietly. Taking a kunai in each hand he twirled one around before throwing it straight at one of the men. His target easily dodged and rushed in. Naruto ducked around the man, barely missing the grabbing hand that was aimed at him and rolling under the following chop to his neck. He was now facing the 4 ninja with his back to the building and all exits cut off. "Looks like you backed yourself into a corner. Not so hot when we know your tricks are you. And for the record, your aim is far under ninja standards." They would have laughed, but their strict training would not allow them such emotions. "Danzo-sama will have a word with you whether you want or not, boy." A new voice joined the conversation along with the sound of numerous feet hitting the ground directly behind the 4 ninja. "No, I don't think Danzo will be getting his little conference today. And for the record, I would say his aim was dead on, root scum." The now identified root ninja turned to face those who now surrounded them. 8 real Anbu flanked one very pissed off Hokage as they took a step back. "For being involved with an unauthorized organization, you are all to be placed in the interrogation department's cells until further notice. I'm sure Ibiki and Anko will be more than happy to accommodate you." As the Anbu stepped forward to take the root ninja into custody, they attempted to shunshin away only to find that they couldn't move. Thus, instead of going to a safe distance for retreat, they ended up cursing the Nara that they were now held in place by. One of them managed to have enough time to turn around and find their target standing there with a grin on his face. "I wouldn't look so smug, boy. He will get what he wants, and next time the Hokage won't be around to save you. You're just lucky that he happened to find out about your little distress in time. Root-san. I am no more lucky at getting help as you were unlucky at getting caught. 1 genin against 4 highly trained ninja isn't that fair of a fight. I simply had to even the odds. Did you know that an attack, no matter how small, on the Hokage tower sends an immediate alarm to the Hokage and the Anbu headquarters? By the way, Hokage-sama, I apologize for using the defenses for personal reasons, but I will let you know how valid they are when we are in a more suitable environment. I don't think you want half of Konoha knowing what is happening in its shadows. He gestured behind them, bringing into attention the crowd that had gathered and was now staring at them. Anything that brought a Kage to an encounter was bound to be important after all. Anbu, show our guests to their accommodations. Naruto-kun, let's go. With the orders made, all parties disappeared as Naruto and Sarutobi made their way to the office yet again. Once in the safety of the room, Naruto was about to activate the security seals once again when the door burst open, throwing Naruto to the side. Hokage-sama. The female made a quick bow before continuing. I am sorry for the intrusion, but I felt it was important to notify you of a recent incident. I realize you must be busy with whatever event just happened, but that boy just barged into the hospital with two poisoned ladies. One of which was the Hyuga heiress Hyuga Hinata. Whatever he did to those two, we are lucky we got to them when we did. They wouldn't have lasted much longer otherwise. Hokage-sama, something must be done about him. This has gone far past pranks. Taking a moment to breath, she was about to continue her rant when she was stopped by the risen hand of the Hiruzen. Yoshike-san, did you perchance inquire as to why said girls were brought there by the boy you claim assaulted them? Well, he brought them there and then ran off, so I hadn't gotten the chance to send him to the interrogation department. If we can find him, then it should take little effort to get him to confess. Were there any other injuries aside from the poison? There were marks from ropes. He no doubt had them bound somewhere before he decided they suffered enough. Hokage saw. Once again a conversation was interrupted as an Anbu phased into the office and knelt before the desk. Hokage-sama, your presence is requested in the council chamber, along with your guests. With a nod from his leader, the Anbu disappeared. The nurse, after taking in the Anbu's words, looked around to find a rather pissed off Genin resting against the wall in the corner nursing a growing bump on his head. She took a step back only to run into the hand of the Hokage. Yoshike-san, Naruto-kun, if you would both follow me, it would seem we have business that needs attending to. Naruto-kun, prepare yourself and try to stay calm, please. I don't need a massacre to be added to the rest of my paperwork today. Said boy was currently taking deep breaths as he slowly stood and followed the two adults out the door, and over to the council chambers. When the door was opened by the Anbu guard, a wall of noise burst forth, making at least two of the three wish they had just blown this summons off. Unfortunately, they all knew that the matter would not simply dissolve, since it involved the village pariah and the heiress of the current, strongest clan in Konoha, so they gritted their teeth and headed in. As soon as they were through the door, the noise level doubled as it seemed that everyone wanted a word with the Hokage. Nodding his two companions to either side of the room, he held his hands up to signal for silence, which was immediately obeyed, although begrudgingly by some. Now, I already have an idea of what this is all about, so I will start with the current issue. The claim is that Uzumaki Naruto seemed to have captured and poisoned two young women. One being Hyuga Hinata and the other is of yet unknown. Have I guessed incorrectly thus far? When no one spoke up, he nodded and continued. Would anyone like to add anything before we hear what happened from both sides of the story? As soon as the words were out of his mouth, there was another chorus of noise before he had to again call for silence. Since this most closely involves you, Hiashi being as one of those affected as your daughter, would you please add what you know of the situation? My daughter was apparently found inside the apartment of this boy. There were no signs of a struggle at that location that we could find, but there was evidence that they were poisoned outside the front door, then drugged through the room and tied up against a wall. From what we could see, it seemed that the owner of the apartment had knocked them out before taking them inside, tying them up and injecting a poison into their bodies. The always calm Hyuga clan head explained his entire view with a straight face, but his grip on the table edge and his whitening knuckles spoke volumes. So you broke into my apartment and had a good look around. Glad to see the almighty Hyuga are not above a little underhanded snooping where they don't belong. I wonder just how much you looked around before being satisfied. I hope you left my bed mostly intact. I could use a good night's sleep after all this crap. Naruto seethed at the obvious lack of respect and the Hyuga's blatant disregard for investigative procedure. Be quiet, boy. You have no right to speak to me as such. Know your place. And you had no right to go through my apartment without the written consent of the Hokage, Hyuga-san. Hiashi was going to give another retort, but was stopped by the Hokage. Naruto-kun is correct, Hiashi-san. You were not given consent and we will deal with that later. Now, does anyone else have something to add? Hiashi glared at the boy once more before settling back into his chair. This time it was Haruno Isako who stood. Yes, Isako-san. I would just like to say that I have seen the accused numerous times around town recently. He seemed to be trying to get close to the Hyuga heiress, possibly to lead her into a false sense of security. This afternoon Hyuga Hinata came into my store, showing another girl around, it seemed. I would assume that was the second girl that is in the hospital. Haku, I believe was her name. Long brown hair, brown eyes. She looked towards the nurse to verify. Seeing a nod, she continued. They must have been seeking out an apartment for this girl as she seemed rather new to the village. Naruto made to say another retort but stopped at a wave from Sarutobi. Okay, anyone else? Most people stayed seated as it seemed they were going to say a similar piece of information. Shikaku-san. All eyes turned towards the Nara clan head. If anyone could find reason in this mess, it would be Inara. Hokage-sama. From what I have heard so far, the evidence does seem to incriminate Uzumaki-san. However, I would prefer to hear the story from those involved if we could. I am interested as to why, if he was the one to abduct and poison them, did Uzumaki-san take them to the hospital? Rather than listen to more one-sided commentary, let us hear from those most directly involved. Finally, someone who had the desire to listen to the other side of the story. Both Hiruzen and Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. Naruto's life being as it was couldn't be that simple, of course. As the Hokage made ready to allow the Yoshike to have her turn, the council chamber door opened and a man they all knew walked in. Danzo. To what do we owe the pleasure? Inuzuka Sume said his name as though it was the worst tasting food she ever ate. Many faces around the room were showing a similar expression, mainly those on the shinobi half. Ah. Hiashi-sama. I just wanted to let you and Yoshike-san know that your daughter and her companion are stable now. Had I not been there when I had for my headache, I would have feared the worst. I apologize for interrupting any meeting taking place, but... He glanced towards Naruto and seemed somewhat surprised to see him there, but composed himself immediately. But I felt it appropriate that I let Hiashi-sama know the good news. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll take my leave. I have some important appointments to attend to. Not waiting for a formal dismissal, Danzo quickly left the room. Opening the door to call him back in, Sarutobi found that he was already long gone. Well, at least I know that there will be no permanent damage. No thanks to you, boy. Hiashi glared at Naruto with pure hatred in his pupil-less eyes. We were just lucky Danzo-sama showed up when he did. Without his help we couldn't have counteracted the poison so quickly. Yoshike said to no one in general. Anyhow, we are all happy that the girls will be safe, but let us continue please. Yoshike-san, if you would. Well, I was sitting at the front counter in the hospital lobby this afternoon when I heard the doors crash open. I looked up to yell at whoever would enter a hospital in such a manner. When I saw that boy walking up to the counter with two unconscious girls slung over him, I rushed over and grabbed them away as any sane person would do. With his reputation, there was no telling what he was going to do, and before I could find out anything about what happened, the boy was gone. I called in 2 beds and after moving them to a room, the doctors examined them to find traces of poison in their system. It was then that Danzo-sama walked by and offered his assistance in neutralizing the poison. With the supplies he carries with him all the time for emergencies, he was able to cure the poison as we've just heard. I suggested he come tell Hiashi-sama that Hinata-sama was fine while I went to the Hokage to bring up the issue, and a few other doctors went to gather the council. I suppose Danzo-sama heard about the meeting and decided this would be the best place to find Hiashi-sama. After being delayed outside the Hokage tower for a few minutes due to some disturbance, I was finally able to get in to see Hokage-sama and begin to explain my story before we were called to this meeting. Is that all, Yoshike-san? The woman thought for a moment before nodding to Sarutobi. All right then, now unless anyone has any questions. I do, Hokage-sama. An elder woman called out from the other end of the table. It was Utatane Kaharu, one of the advisors of the Hokage. Would you please elaborate on what you thought the boy might have had the intention of doing? Well, he yelled at me to get them some beds or he would do it himself, and he said he doubted he would do it as carefully as I would. I assumed he meant that he would cause them more harm if I didn't hurry up and take them from him. And why do you suppose he would have brought them to you and told you to take them from him if he did indeed have intentions to harm them further? Wouldn't it have been easier to not take them to a hospital at all? Soong was confused as to the logic of the statement. A momentary change of heart, I suppose. Perhaps he wanted to get rid of them before something else regained control. Comma. Anyone else? Silence reigned throughout the chamber, signifying that there were no further questions. Good. Then we will now listen to Naruto's. Why even bother to listen to the brat? I think we've heard enough already. Haruno-san, everyone is given the right to explain themselves. Even those who speak out unjustly. Now, unless you have something to say in favor of, or against either party, then I would suggest you keep silent for the remainder of Naruto-kun's explanation. That goes for everyone here unless you want me to personally escort you away from this table. From the civilian half of the council, a few gulps were heard as certain people swallowed whatever was about to come out of their mouths. Of the shinobi half, there were only a couple of people chose to glare a little more than was necessary. Now then, the floor is yours, Naruto-kun. Naruto-kun. Faces shifted as the council looked over to find the blonde meditating in the corner. Cough, Naruto-kun. Huh. Oh. Sorry, Hokage-sama. I was just trying to calm myself. So you thought you would sleep through important discussions? We should throw you out for your ignorance. Quicker than most could see, a seat was empty as they all heard the door to the room slam shut with a rather terse old man walking back to his seat. Few had even registered the Hokage move, but they could all see that he made good on his threat, as there was now an empty seat at the table, and most likely a very distraught civilian council member trying to get past the guards and back to the meeting inside the room. Naruto-kun, it's your turn to give your side of the story. Oh, I know, Hokage-sama. I just wanted to see if any of them would be stupid enough to tempt fate. Showing off how white his teeth were drew a few giggles from the table, as many were reminded of the former prankster, and that the mischief maker was still in there. Well then, if you are done, would you please indulge our fascination and tell us about your day? Sarutobi gave the boy a serious look to let him know there would be no more fooling around. He was only mildly surprised when the flashy grin turned deadly serious in an instant. Hi, Hokage-sama. I will begin with after our debriefing this afternoon. I had some personal matters that I attended to before I went into my apartment for a shower. I created a clone in case anyone stopped by, but it proved to be unnecessary. Afterward, I decided to work on some mental discipline at another location for a while. I left my previously made clone at the apartment, again in case anyone stopped by. A few hours later, I was brought out of my trance when my clone dispelled. After learning what it had encountered, I immediately rushed to my apartment, broke the door open and found Hyuga Hinata and Momochi Haku bound and unconscious inside. Creating another clone, I picked up both and rushed them to the hospital. You have already heard about that encounter, however, I would like to clarify one thing. When I said I would find them beds myself, and not as carefully, I meant that if I had to, I would go door to door through the hospital and break each one down until I found the empty beds I required. The reason I did not stick around was so that I could notify Hokage-sama about what had happened and discuss with him what my clone had discovered before he dispelled himself. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to, as Yoshike-san came bursting in when I was about to activate the security seals. After she gave a rushed account, we were again interrupted by an Anbu who told us we were summoned to the council chambers. That is all I wish to say in current company. He could see the looks of suspicion around the room, but met each with an unflinching eye. That is all you will say in front of us. We are the village council, boy. You will tell us what you know. Kate Fumahika, a semi-wealthy cloth merchant, spoke with an authority belying his stature. Sir, no disrespect, but the rest of the matter is ninja business only, and as such is not meant to be heard by civilian ears. Though it could easily sway matters in my favor, I will not risk this village's safety in order to save myself. He smirked mentally as he knew all they could do was flap their gums at him. These were the laws they themselves agreed upon, and as such they were obliged to follow them. On the shinobi side, however, he was getting more than one appreciative gaze, as it would seem a lesser person would have caved to the demands of the council if it meant they would walk away freely. But hey, why not rub a little salt in the wound while it's open? Again, I mean no disrespect, but I was also wondering what reason the civilian portion of the council has to be in on this discussion. It is, after all, a matter in which all parties reside under the jurisdiction of the shinobi portion of the council. If the gazes were appreciative before, he wasn't sure what to make of it when their jaws hit the floor. The other girl, Haku, I believe her name was. She is new to the village and presumed to be a civilian, thus she falls under our jurisdiction. Mitokado Homura spoke with age and authority almost on the level with the Hokage. He was on the same team as Hiruzen and Kaharu, so such a thing was understandable. Yet even with such a presence facing him, the boy didn't flinch. It wasn't Naruto that answered this time though, but Sarutobi who interjected. I should have probably announced this before we started, but Momochi Haku as of this afternoon has agreed to join our ninja ranks. Being already trained as a ninja, I have allowed her to enter right into the ranks at genin level, after the justification of the normal graduation test. She has also already been placed on a team and was going to begin missions as soon as the team saw fit to do so. Though she may be in the hospital for a while due to this recent event, I'm sure her teammate won't mind doing more solo missions in the meantime, will you, Naruto-kun? He smiled at the boy who once again gave a toothy grin back. So in lieu of such information, I ask that the civilian members of this council retire from the chambers. The rest of you may stay and we will continue discussions. His tone was sharp and direct, making no room for question. With only slight hesitation, the civilians shuffled out the door, pausing only slightly to glare or sneer at the boy that so easily dismissed their authority. Claps could be heard once the door shut as a few of those left applauded the boy for turning away the more annoying portion of the administration of the village with such ease. Naruto flourished a bow, much to the annoyance of the Hyuga head, and at least one other. Yamanaka Inoichi didn't like the whiskered blonde. He didn't really dislike him either. Being part of the interrogation squad, he instead tried to keep a neutral point of view on every aspect of any dispute. As his job kept him at his workplace most of the time, the only bit he knew about Naruto was what he had caught his daughter saying about the boy during their academy term. From what she said, and what he had seen so far, the Naruto she knew and the one he now faced were two completely different beings, and so far he was impressed but still guarded on his opinion. Hope you don't mind, but I think I'll take a seat now. No one made an objection save for a huff from Hiyashi as the boy hopped up into a chair and faced them. What was interesting was that he chose a seat that would allow him to see them all, and all of them to see him without needing to move an inch. It was a perfect strategy for taking in all actions that transpired, but also left one open to any and all attacks. Either the boy was very brave and this was an open challenge for any of them to prove him wrong, or he had no implications of what he had done and didn't really care one way or the other. So now that we are serious, I will discuss the missing sections of my story. First, I would like to mention that before I left on my mission to Wave, I was confronted by 4 ninja who were dressed similar to an Anbu member. These ninja mentioned that Danzo wanted an audience with me. Ears were now perked up and even Hiyashi was leaning forward a bit. They all knew Danzo was hiding something, but to think that the person everyone loved to hate could be their proof was more than enough to put them on edge. Sarutobi himself was leaning forward as well since he hadn't been told about this encounter previously. I was able to get away that time with a smoke bomb and a kawarimi. They had obviously not expected such an action from an inexperienced genin. Naruto smirked a bit remembering the encounter. So you expect us to believe you took on 4 older ninja and got away? Akamichi Choza was skeptical that a boy the same age as his own son could even come close to tangling with a more experienced shinobi and come out unscathed. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. Quite honestly, I don't care if any of you believe me or not, I'm just saying what happened. Also, I didn't fight them, I just did my best to get away. I knew it was highly unlikely I was going to be able to take them all on. 4-on-1 is difficult enough with people your own skill level, let alone risking such a feat on people you don't know the skills of. Now, that was just so you know that I had already heard somewhat about Danzo. As far as I'm concerned, anyone who uses that much force for a genin is only either the Hokage, the council, or someone who can't risk such an event leaking into general knowledge. So, on to the main event. As I said, the time between my mission debriefing and my arrival at my apartment was personal, so you won't need to know about that. I will skip ahead to the information I gained from when my clone dispersed. Taking a moment, Naruto gathered his thoughts before leveling his gaze with his audience and beginning his story. Chapter 9. Intelligence amongst hatred. Flashback Naruto's eyes widened as two Anbu, similar to the four that had jumped him before his mission to Wave, appeared behind Hinata and Haku and put cloths over their faces, causing them to immediately go unconscious. What the hell did you do? He got into his fighting stance and prepared for anything. Careful, boy. We wouldn't want to have to hurt these two to get you to comply. We told you that Danzo-sama gets what he wants. Now will you come quietly, or do you need to be further motivated? One of the masked men threatened. Naruto gritted his teeth. He couldn't allow the two girls to be hurt, but he really didn't want to see a guy that was willing to go this far for just a simple chat. His internal conflict took too long for the two men's taste, it seemed, and he looked on in horror as they each took out a syringe and injected its contents into each of the girls. That was a slow-acting poison. If you comply and come along nicely, they'll get the antidote and there will be no harm done. If not, well, let's just say you won't find a cure fast enough. Swallowing whatever pride he had left and throwing his danger sense to the wind, he nodded his head. He soon found himself slightly restrained by one of the men while the other tied the two girls up inside the apartment. He was then led through the village and eventually blindfolded before they entered into a tunnel system that wound around itself and branched off many times before coming to an underground building complex. The only sign that he was now underground was the dripping water on the stone floors as they traveled. His blindfold was then ripped off and he was finally able to confirm his surroundings. Danzo-sama is waiting for you inside. He's not a very patient man and he has been lenient with you so far. I wouldn't make him wait much longer. Taking the hint, Naruto entered the building. They stopped in front of the desk inside to find an older man standing with his back wide open, staring at a map of Fire Country. So you're Danzo, I assume. Guess there's no chance you'll give me the antidote and we call it a day as there. You know I am a man with ambitions, Naruto-kun, and as any person with ambitions knows, we require tools to see those ambitions come to fruition. I take that as a no then. He knelt on the floor but stayed ready for anything just in case. There were more than a few people in the village that didn't like him. For all he knew, this one wanted him dead. Danzo turned to him with an amused smile that didn't quite look right on his face. I seek such tools for myself and for the good of Konoha. For the safety of this village I have sacrificed much, and I intend to see to it that this village is kept secure. By threatening children with the death of their friends. I can see how all of this is for the safety of Konoha. Danzo's smile vanished. I know what is inside of you, boy. I also know that if you can harness its power, that you would be one of the strongest shinobi ever. I seek to help you learn how to control what is inside of you so that we can use it to wipe out those who would conspire against us. It's those lackadaisical fools on the council and that senile old man running this farce of a ninja village that would not allow me to train you properly. Under my tutelage you would have been 10 times the ninja you are today. I know how you strive for attention. I know how no one acknowledged you in your classes. You should not have been tossed to the side like a disposable rag. You should have been fine-tuned and surpassed even the Jonin of this village by now. Instead you were left to fend for yourself with no one to care for you. Even going so far as to hiding for long periods of time to keep yourself safe. I applaud you, by the way, for evading my operatives for over a month. Not many could do that, and with your Academy level 1 I'm rather shocked at such a feat, but it only serves to show what potential you have. Let us show you that potential and we will lead you farther than you could imagine. So you basically want me to toss away my loyalty to the village and my newly gained genin status in order to work for you from the shadows to support that loyalty with no one even knowing what I'm doing. Sounds sneaky, but you clearly weren't paying attention to your reports on my activities in the academy, or the village as a whole for that matter. Don't you know I'm the demon brat, monster of Konoha? I'm the prankster that can't be caught, the dunce who skips class more than attends it, the dead last that wears, kill me, orange to get attention. Are you sure I'm the one you're looking for? Maybe you should just hand over that antidote and go for someone who wants power, like Sasuke Tem. The grin on his face was infuriating, but Danzo was a patient man when it came to getting what he wanted, and well practiced at hiding his emotions. I will give you an option. Option 1, you may leave now, without the antidote, and suffer the consequences. Option 2, you spend a week training here, I give the antidote to the girls, and after a week you decide if you want to stay or not. No. Option 3, I tell you to shove it and you hand over the antidote anyway, huh? Well, you don't give me much a choice. I guess option 2 is the only way I can go. Just promise me that the antidote will work, and after they are cured you won't touch them again. Agreed, and as a sign of good faith I will give you this. He threw a scroll to Naruto, who looked at him quizzically. Read it when you get to your room and you'll find out a secret that only a few in the village know. A sinister smile crossed Danzo's face as he signaled two of his route to lead the boy to a room. He finally got what he wanted. His own Jinchuriki. As he turned back to the map to lose himself in his musings, he missed the boy's own smirk as he was led to one of the other buildings. After being left alone in the room and hearing the latch click into place, he opened the scroll and read it in what little light there was coming through the solitary barred window from a nearby brazier. Eyes widening, he quickly rolled the scroll back up and, with careful aim, threw the document into the brazier outside before making a sign and disappearing in a puff of smoke. Flashback and After my clone dispelled and I sorted through the information, I rushed to my apartment, and that bit you already heard. After leaving the hospital, I was once again cut off from my destination by more route. I would assume from Danzo's expression at seeing me not too long ago that he wasn't aware that it was a clone he had talked to, nor that it had dispelled. Thus I have to also assume that this set of route was still under orders to be on the lookout for me, but hadn't been notified that I'd already been caught. Again, I knew I couldn't take 4 on by myself, so I instead threw a kunai towards the one that was in line with the Hokage tower. He dodged as expected, and they never noticed that the tower's alarms had activated until Hokage-sama and 2 Anbu units arrived to take them into custody. The rest you pretty much know. Danzo never did disband route as ordered. I knew there was something wrong when our ninja ranks didn't grow when he supposedly released his men from service. The Nara was almost beating himself from not seeing this sooner. To think we all just took his saying that they all felt they would rather retire than not be under his command, as truth. This is very disturbing news. We will have to look into this further. I suggest an investigation. If Uzumaki-san would be so kind as to show us the entrance to these tunnels, I shall send in some scouts to pinpoint this underground complex. I would love to do that, Aburame-san, but as I said, they blindfolded me, then led me in a few circles outside the village before taking me to the caves. All I can tell you is that the entrance is not inside the village walls. At least not the entrance we used. Naruto-kun, you have given us much grave information today, but we must now discuss how to go forward with this. Beyond this point it is council-only business, and I will have to ask you to leave. I understand, Hokage-sama, but there is one thing I want to know about before I leave. The secret that Danzo gave me. I need to know if it's true. Naruto walked over to the aged man and motioned for him to lean down. He whispered something in the Hokage's ear that made his eyes widen, before taking on a more sorrowful look. I have to know, Jiji-san. Naruto turned his face away from the table. He didn't want to show them any sign of weakness. Not now. I see, so he knows that too. It's true, Naruto-kun, and I suppose you've proven that you are strong enough to know. But first, this council will be dismissed until tomorrow. I would like you all here by 8 o'clock. We have much to discuss about Danzo. And the Uchiha. Getting nods from all the clan heads, he left with Naruto towards his office. What I want to know is why my Hinata was at that boy's door. Hiyashi's fists were clenching once again as he tried to make sense of his daughter's actions. Oh, come off it, Hiyashi. They're teens, what do you think she was doing there? She practically stalked him the whole time they were in the academy, and even a little before if my memory serves me. Choza gave a jovial laugh as he patted the man on the back, at least he did until the man fixed him with a glare. There's no need to get upset, Hiyashi. He even defended your daughter when my son tried to force himself on her. Sume clapped her hands over her mouth when she realized what she said, but it was too late as the Hyuga's gaze shifted slowly to her. Don't worry, he's already being punished for it. It won't happen again. Really now Hiashi. Is the boy that bad that you would forbid your daughter to be near him? Let them alone, it's probably just some crush she will grow out of anyway. Nara logic never did account for the protectiveness of a father, or in Hiashi's case, the unflinching loyalty to one's clan. I would rather disown her than have that boy associated with the Hyuga clan. The statement was cold and direct. It wasn't a mere threat and it shocked everyone who heard it. You don't mean that Hiashi? She's your daughter and heir to the Hyuga clan. You can't just throw her away like that just because she likes a boy. Shut up. All of you. This does not relate to any of you. This is now a Hyuga clan matter and as such I will deal with it as is my station as clan head dictates. Hinata is weak and misguided. Her sister will be twice the clan head she could hope to be. With that Hiashi stood and walked out of the room, radiating killing intent. One thought ran through the heads of those left behind. He can't be serious. Each of them had their own children that would inherit the leadership of their clan. The thought of disowning one without a just cause was ludicrous. An abominable idea as a parent and as a clan head, but then, the Hyuga never really showed the same type of family connections that the rest of them had. At least not the main branch. So you found out who your parents were. I admit I wasn't going to tell you until I saw fit that you would be able to protect yourself, but I suppose you have shown that you are more than capable of that. I will give you the choice of whether you want this to be public knowledge or not, but I will warn you that if word of this gets out, Danzo will be the least of your worries. No, I don't want anyone that doesn't need to know to find out. If I think someone is trustworthy enough for the information, then I will share it with them, but right now my circle of friends is small, and those that I would trust with such a secret is even smaller. For now though, I would like to know if they left me anything. A letter, a picture, an apology. He tried to be strong, but he couldn't help it when tears began to sting the corners of his eyes. Sarutobi walked around the corner of his desk and embraced the blonde as the boy cried into his cloak. Why? Why did he do it? Why me? Inside he knew it had to be him. There just wasn't anyone else that he would have felt right placing the burden on. After all, if the leader of a village isn't willing to sacrifice his own son, then what kind of leader is he? Yes, Naruto had found out that his father and the man that had damned him to his hell of a childhood were one and the same. He was not Uzumaki Naruto, orphan and village pariah of Konohagakure. He was Namikaze Naruto, son of the Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato and his wife Uzumaki Kushina. After calming down, both took their seats again and Naruto watched as Sarutobi dug into his safe. The man pulled out a small black lacquered box with an orange swirl pattern on its lid. He opened it with the lid between Naruto and the box's contents and looked at the first of its contents, which he hadn't seen in more than a decade. Slowly he took each article out and placed it in front of the eager teen. I'm sure this is probably one of the items you wanted the most, Naruto. The first item revealed was a photograph. It was only slightly faded near the edges as it hadn't seen much light at all. The picture spent all of 2 seconds on the desktop before it was snatched up as Naruto took a closer look. This was the closest he had ever been to the two people he should have known the most about throughout his young life. His father, Minato, was holding his mother Kushina around the shoulders. His mom had her hand on her own bulging stomach. Gigi-san, do I have any siblings? None. See. Then this is a complete family portrait. Sarutobi gave him a few moments before bringing out the next item, or items rather. He laid 2 journals on the desk in front of Naruto. One is your mother's, the other is your father's. I have allowed no one to read either of them, including myself. The information inside is yours and yours alone. Naruto picked them up and opened the leather bindings of one. He read a couple pages before setting it aside and doing the same with the other. He found each was a small diary, one from each of his parents. They weren't large, but they began when their life together began, and most likely ended when their lives ended. It would take him a long time to get through so few pages. They were, after all, the lives of his parents together. He wouldn't tarnish their memory by skimming through their life. To him every moment would be precious and he would live it through their words. He only looked up from his quiet contemplation when another item was brought out from the box. This time it was a key. There was nothing spectacular about it. It wasn't large and gold or wrought with precious gemstones, but it may as well have been. Even though it was plain, he could tell exactly what it belonged to. It was the key to a house, their house. This was confirmed when a piece of paper joined it in front of him. A deed to a house somewhere in Konoha. From the address he could tell it wasn't in the richest section, nor the poorest, but a rather humble middle ground. It made him proud to know that, while his parents may have been some of the most powerful in the elemental countries, like him they didn't waste anything on frivolous items. They found no need to show off anything they had. Now Naruto, I need you to understand something. You parents were rich. One of the richest families in the village. Unfortunately, the council decided that their wealth would serve better elsewhere when it was found out that Minato and Kushina had no known relatives. You see, Minato was an orphan and Kushina was the only known survivor from the former Whirlpool country. Since I couldn't reveal your relationship to them, it was only a matter of time until the council decided to remove their savings and distribute them throughout various organizations while I was out of the village. By the time I got back, the paper trail had all but disappeared and there was no hope of getting any of it back. I'm sorry. Sarutobi hung his head a bit, knowing he had failed the boy in that respect. How hard he had tried to get that money back, but in the end the most he could do was give the boy what the council would allow him to live off of. On the brighter side though, I was able to save their house. One of the more ambitious council members at the time was attempting to get at the items inside for a sale before he planned to move himself in. Let's just say he is no longer among the general populace of the village. Your father was a master of seals, and if there was a building more secure than his own house, then I don't know of it. After that event, I made sure that none of the other council members could touch any more of their belongings by signing the properties and holdings of the Namakazes over to my own name, and it is with my own authority that I have already begun the process of transferring them to your name. All it needs is a signature. Here is an extended one finger and pointed to the blank line on the deed papers that would signify the change of ownership of all properties that he had set aside from the Namakaze estates. It took a few minutes for the information to sink in, but when it did, Naruto leapt over the desk and hugged the Hokage tightly as he tried to contain his sobs. Thank you, Gigi-san. Thank you so much. The old man had expected anger at the loss of his rightful wealth, but to be thanked for underestimating the greed of his own people was far from what he thought would happen. Naruto, you aren't angry that your rightful fortune was taken away? The boy looked up and sniffled while wiping his eyes. I have a family, a father and a mother. I have things that I would have grown up with if they hadn't died. Money comes and goes. I can live without it, but memories are more valuable than an entire mountain of gold. That you were able to save anything from those greedy bastards is more than enough. Thank you, Hokage Gigi. Well, that's the last of it, unfortunately. Everything else was either sold or simply disappeared. No doubt to be used as memoirs of the Yondaime or for private collections. So, if you want, we can go take a look at your new house, and see if you can't get inside. With any luck, the seals will know the blood of their creator's descendant. Hi. I think I would like to that. Collecting the various items and placing them back in the box, the two made their way through the village towards the house of the former Yondaime. After over a dozen years, it would finally have its first new occupant. When they arrived outside the front gate, Naruto found himself facing a decent-sized two-story building with a small yard out front. The house was completely dark, and though it wasn't the largest of buildings around, it still made an imposing visage. Whether that was from the darkness, or the knowledge of whose house this had been, he wasn't sure. He walked forward slowly and pressed his hand on the gate only to find it unyielding. He gave a questioning look at his companion. It's a blood seal, Naruto. The first time you open it, you will need to place some of your blood on this seal here. After that, you should be fine. Nodding, Naruto turned back towards the gate and bit his finger. Wiping it on the seal, they were both startled when Naruto couldn't pull his hand away. Instead, he began to glow as his chakra seemed to drain into the seal. Soon a blue sphere of chakra surrounded him as the attention of those close enough to see or feel it was drawn to the gate. Those who knew who the house belonged to were at first surprised at what was happening. Then, seeing who it was that was at the gate, they were angered. Anger turned to joy though when they noticed Naruto's brow begin to sweat, and the look of worry crossing the Hokage's face. Anbu began to show up as the chakra began to slowly die down. With orders shouted from the Sandaime, they began to close off the street and move the onlookers away. It's taking so much chakra. I feel dizzy. Is it going to drain me completely? Just what were you thinking, Dad? Didn't you want your own son to get inside? Like hell. Naruto's chakra suddenly exploded as a look of determination settled on his face. Everyone stopped all actions as the sheer pressure of the air seemed to demand time to stand still. Even Sarutobi was forced to take a few steps back as the chakra swirled around, creating a small dervish in the middle of the street. Slowly red cracks crossed the surface of the seal. Hours seemed to pass as they watched the crack grow closer to the center until, like glass, the seal shattered into millions of pieces and faded away. With the seal broken and no longer demanding chakra, the dome surrounding Naruto vanished, leaving him weaving slightly before falling backwards into the waiting arms of the Hokage. The last thing he saw before falling unconscious were the now unlocked gates swinging open as Sarutobi carried him inside. The sun was shining through the window of the room as two young women began to stir the next morning. It was a beautiful day out, but both were far too groggy from their experience the day before. Shielding her eyes, Haku was the first to actually look around. As she took in the white walls and sheets, along with her roommate, what she could remember from yesterday started coming back to her. The last time she saw daylight, she and Hinata had just arrived back at Naruto's apartment, and then something fell over her face as his door opened. The next thing she could recall was a splitting headache as something was injected into her and she saw the sun setting before she was again forced into darkness. Now she woke up in an obvious hospital room with no one here to explain to her what happened. The only clue nearby was Hinata, who was now starting to crack her eyes open. Morning, Hinata-chan. Any idea what happened yesterday? Haku-san. Why are we in the hospital? I'll take that as a no then. I'm as lost as you at the moment. I just woke up a few minutes ago, and no one has been by yet. I suppose we just wait for someone to show up. Unknown to them, it would be over an hour before someone decided to check in on them, but they managed to pass the time with idle chat about their lives. Haku, though a bit reluctant about it, opened up a little about her earlier days when she still had parents. She skipped some more personal times, before talking about her training with Zabuza and going into depth of how she met Naruto and what they did during that mission. Basically some things she had wanted to discuss the day before, but not in the public places they visited. Hinata was a bit more open with her life. She was no longer ashamed of how fragile she was, since in the end she was with Naruto. She talked mostly about how she would watch him train and be inspired to push herself harder. As far as family affairs went, she only went into how she was considered weak, and though she tried, she was rather looked down upon even though she was the clan heir. Soon after they heard the clock tone 7, they both turned towards the door as it swung open to reveal Hyuga Hiyashi in all his imposing glory, and even for a Hyuga he didn't look happy. Surprisingly, he was followed by the entire Hyuga council, making the room seem much smaller than it originally was. Not one of them seemed to care that Haku was there at all, as their entire attention was on the Hyuga heiress. One of the council elders stepped forward and addressed the onlooking team. Hyuga Hinata, it has been brought to our attention that you have been associating with a male not of our choosing in an intimate matter. Furthermore, said male is from outside the clan. Are these accusations accurate? The girl's eyes were wide in fear as she began to shake. To Haku, she seemed to be on autopilot as she nodded her head in the affirmative. It slowly registered to her just what was going on, and she felt guilty that a part of her was dancing around in her head. It seemed the girl was not supposed to be romantically associated with anyone outside of her own clan, or at least not without their approval. It sounded rather harsh and she felt bad for her newest friend, but there was little she could do. Since you have gone against the guidelines of the clan, you will leave us little choice in the consequences unless you cease such a selfish action this moment. You will break off all relations with Uzumaki Naruto, and we shall choose someone suited to your station to accompany you should you feel the need for companionship. Hinata was beside herself. It had taken her so many years, but she was finally with who she wanted to be with, and now her family was trying to tear her away from her happiness when she had finally realized just how loyal her Naruto-kun was to her. She had trampled his heart into the ground yesterday, yet gained it back. Now she would have to dash it to pieces no matter what she felt. No, no, They can't. I won't let them. I'll disappear before I let them. With all the determination she could muster in front of so many intimidating figures, she lifted her head to meet their stares with more strength behind her than they had ever seen. Though it still didn't amount to much, it was enough for her to whisper out the words she wanted. "IW will not abandon him again. Why you can't make me abandon him again?" That was all she could get out before she had to cover her lower face with her blanket, but the damage was already done. Haku watched from her bed as the older men got out what looked to be ink and a brush. "Hyuga Hinata, since you refuse to follow reason, we are forced to banish you from the clan." Gasps escaped both girls as what was said sank in. "As such, you will now receive the same seal as the branch house of the Hyuga clan. Know your treacherous acts when you see it upon your brow as you peer at your own reflection." The man holding the brush dipped it in the ink jar and moved forward to begin the process of placing the caged bird seal. His hand moved quick and precise as he drew symbols on a stunned Hinata's face. No ceremony was given as another man tore the back off her hospital gown as the seal maker continued onto her back. He finished with a flourish as Hiashi himself stepped forward. "As of now, you are no longer a Hyuga and you are no longer my daughter." He began to channel chakra into his hand as he lowered it to the center of her forehead. His palm was never able to make contact, though, as a thick layer of ice surrounded it. He soon found the same ice forming around all of his limbs along with those of his council. None of them could move an inch, but they could feel the killing intent of someone nearby. With some difficulty, a few of the men turned their gazes towards the source and found a livid Haku crouching on the edge of her bed with a snarl marring her otherwise perfect features. "How dare you restrain us, child? This is clan business, you have no right to interfere. I claim the right of one forgotten to save the sanity of someone who has accepted her. You will have to go through more than myself if you ever want to lay a hand on Hinata-chan again. Even if you do manage to get your filthy paws on her, I can promise you they will not be in any condition to do harm." With an agile leap, Haku sent herself over to Hinata's bed and gathered the girl in her arms before rushing over to the window as fast as her recovering body would allow. She gave one last glare over to the men and saw that the ice was starting to crack, so turning back to the now open window, she shot out into the village and across the rooftops before dropping out of sight amongst the village's alleyways. "Hiashi, I do hope you plan on fixing this mishap. We cannot allow an uncontrolled Hyuga to run around freely outside of the compound. You must regain control over your daughter." The tone of the clock rang out once more, signaling that it was nearing 8 o'clock. The process of writing the seal had been a long one. "I have a meeting with Hokage-sama shortly. I will settle this matter afterward, but I only have one daughter now. Hinata is little more than a nuisance." The council of Hyuga left the room with only one looking back. Hiashi glanced at the open window and glared across the rooftops. He had already been to the boy's apartment once this week. If she were truly close to him, then she would be easily found again. "You may run all you want, but you are as predictable as your fighting. That is why you will always be weak." Silently he turned and made his way towards his next destination. After all, the village council had to decide what to do with the despicable existence of Danzo, and whatever the Hokage needed to discuss about the Uchiha. He had woken up early in the morning, well before the sun, as he normally did. At first he had no idea where he was, as the room was completely different than any he had seen before. It took a little exploring before he found the box that the Hokage had given him the night before, along with a note. "Congratulations, Naruto. It seems Minato-kun made a rather more intricate seal than we at first thought. While I do not know exactly what happened, all I can tell you is that you successfully accessed the property, and as such it has been proven to be rightfully yours. Unfortunately, quite a crowd had seen the event take place, so I am unsure how long we will be able to keep your lineage under wraps. Don't worry about that now though. Get yourself settled in and begin moving whatever you need from your old apartment over. Its door is still broken, so I can't say how long any of your possessions will stay safe. I would have brought them over myself, but I had a lot of explaining to do. As it stands, the story is that I decided to open up the estate to whoever wanted to purchase it. You had been the first to offer, and with you mission savings, you had just enough to buy it. We found out that it was rather heavily sealed, but through luck or the deterioration of the seals you were able to unlock the gates. Be sure to lock the doors and the gate if you leave. I have no idea what the villagers may try, and I'd rather not find out. Good luck with your new estate and I hope you get along with your new teammate. Make sure you both come see me within the next month as I have an important offer for you. Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandame Hokage, Gigi-san. Naruto gave a small smile as he read the note, then a large grin as he realized that this was his house and his room now. He recalled his talk about getting a new apartment, but to have a whole house was more than he'd expected. With a frenzied pace he ran from room to room inspecting everything. Sure, it needed a lot of cleaning, but underneath the layers of dust and grime were floors and furniture that were all his. There were 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, an office, kitchen, dining room, living room, an enclosed patio that looked over a nice-sized backyard that was fenced in for privacy. The backyard held a small training area and a bamboo-enclosed meditation area with a small pond in it. The basement held some aged sake and stored non-perishable items along with another room that looked to be a library. He would have a look through some of the scrolls there later. There weren't many, but he could easily fix that. By far the worst experience so far was the kitchen. It seemed his parents had to vacate in a hurry as all the food items in the refrigerator had spoiled and there were unwashed dishes in the sink. The trash would need emptied as well, but with all the cleaning he was going to have to do it really wouldn't amount to much after all of it was finished. After his impromptu tour he settled into his practical mindset. In seconds there were small groups of clones assigned to each room. He had to push the ones that he put in the kitchen, and ended up making some face masks from some rags they found. If they kept up the pace the house should be cleaned up in no time, so there would be no point in waiting around. Getting the key from the box in his bedroom he headed off to his apartment to gather what few belonging might still be there. After all the excitement yesterday he had never been able to see just how thorough the Hyuga decided to search his place. He stopped only briefly to grab a couple bowls of ramen at Ichiraku's when his stomach reminded him that he had little to eat recently. Ichiraku Tsuki was one of the few people he would trust with his new living accommodations. After all, how would he get his ramen delivered if the man didn't know where he lived? It seemed that the man had no idea who the house had belonged to formerly, so it wasn't like he would be spreading around rumors anyway. It wasn't until his apartment was in sight that a cold shiver went down his spine. For some reason there seemed to be an unpleasant aura around the place. He found himself debating whether he should wait until later, but decided that if it were some ignorant village mob that was trying to take out what was left of his former residence he would try to save what he could before making a dash for it. The feeling only grew worse however as he climbed the steps, and he came to a dead stop after turning the corner into his hallway. It seemed like deja vu. There crouched outside his broken down door was Hyuga Hinata, clutching her knees and crying. The only differences between yesterday and today though were the hospital gowns, the presence of Haku who was similarly dressed and the green ink writing all over Hinata that was unmistakably the beginnings of a seal. Haku was kneeling in front of Hinata trying to coax her head up in order to wipe the marks off her face with the wet cloth in her hand. Giving up on that for the time being she moved to the girl's back and was about to start washing away the offending marks before a hand stopped her movement. Looking up she saw the face of Naruto. Immediately she hugged him before pulling away slightly ashamed that she did such an action in front of Hinata. Embarrassment was overshadowed though with the question that was on her mind. Why did you stop me Naruto-kun? It was all Hinata needed to hear though as she shot up and clung onto him, knocking him down in the process, completely disregarding the state of her clothing. Naruto-kun. She began to sob into his chest and he let her go as his shirt began to dampen. He stroked her hair and back trying to calm her down so he could make sense of what was going on, but she didn't seem to want to stop. He gave a quizzical but worried look at Haku who sighed and helped the distraught girl to her feet. Naruto waited until Haku was supporting Hinata fully before pushing his door the rest of the way open and quickly ushering them inside. He did his best to close the door behind them and propped a chair in front of it as a makeshift lock. Okay, why were you both sitting out in the hall in front of my apartment in nothing but hospital gowns? Why is Hinata's gown torn, and why does she have seal inscriptions on her? It wasn't a question but a demand aimed at the only one of the two that seemed capable of talking. He sat on the couch and motioned Haku to give Hinata to him. They settled Hinata in his lap and Haku began her explanation as Naruto rocked his girlfriend to comfort her. We had just woken up from whatever happened yesterday and were talking when all of a sudden some people from her family, including her father, came in and asked her to confirm or deny her relationship with you. When she confirmed and refused to end it, they told her she was no longer a Hyuga and then began drawing these symbols on her, even ripping her clothes off to do it. When the one man was done, her father moved towards her with chakra in his hand and told her that she wasn't a Hyuga or his daughter anymore. Hinata's sobbing grew stronger as she gripped Naruto tighter. He returned the action to let her know he was still there. When he was about to touch her, I was so angry that I froze them all in place, then took Hinata and ran. I don't know why they didn't follow, but this was the only place I could think to go. Hinata refused to enter though and just sat down outside, and that's how you found us. I didn't know what else to do. I'm sorry. Naruto fixed her with a stern glare and she feared she'd taken the worst action. Is that exactly what happened? In that exact order. When she nodded and surprisingly Hinata nodded into his chest, he sighed. Good. Both girls were stunned. What the hell do you mean good? Hinata-chan was just disowned by her family and they were about to do something weird to her. How can you say good? His glare landed on Haku again and she shrank back into her seat. Good because the Hyuga are a bunch of stuck-up assholes, well most of them. He stroked Hinata's hair and whispered to her that she was one of the biggest exceptions to that, bringing a small jerk to the corner of her mouth. Good because they didn't get what they wanted. Good because they can't get what they want, and good because I can find out what they wanted. That is if you will let me, Hinata-chan. The girl gave a small nod and he moved her off his lap. Whatever you do, don't touch those marks. He called out behind him as he headed into his bedroom. He came out in a few minutes with a scroll, ink and brushes, and 2 sets of clothing. He handed a set to Haku. Here, you can wear this for now. It's not much, but they didn't exactly leave me much when they decided to investigate. Here. She nodded and thanked him before heading into his room to change. He turned back towards Hinata as he laid out his supplies. This is going to be a bit embarrassing for both of us, but please bear with it. He lifted her face and slowly got her to drop the top of her gown, making them both blush and Hinata screw her eyes shut. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan, but the sooner I get this copied down, the sooner you can get dressed, so please try not to cover yourself for now if it helps any. I think you're beautiful. Quote. After she gave a reluctant nod and set her arms to her sides, he was treated to a view of her early developing, bra-clad chest, but he fought past any thoughts of that as concern for her well-being overrode any perversion on his part. Had Hinata kept her eyes open, she would have seen a hand, more expert than that of the Hyuga elder that had marked her, glide across the parchment, duplicating every symbol exactly as it was on her skin. His job was made all the easier by her blush as it contrasted against the ink, allowing him to easily see each stroke. Midway through, Haku came out fully dressed in his clothes and stopped at witnessing what was going on. The grace in Naruto's strokes seemed to display far superior expertise than any sealmaker she'd ever seen, not that she'd seen many. If she didn't already know him, she would have thought him a man with half a lifetime of experience in the art. She stayed silent as he worked diligently, eyes never wavering from the seals he was copying as they simply seemed to flow through his eyes and right out of the brush he held. Not once did he run out of ink mid-stroke, nor did he misplace a symbol even though he never glanced at the scroll in his lap. It was an elegant dance of hand and eye that entranced her until he suddenly stopped, snapping her out of her daze. Hinata-chan, I have the front done. I need you to turn around so I can get the back. Eyes still shut tight, the girl nodded and turned around before settling on her knees, bringing her arms over her breasts to keep what little modesty she had left as he brushed her hair gently out of the way. Once again the dance begun and Haku was sent into a trance as she watched the brush sweep back and forth. The seal on this side had reached all the way down Hinata's back, almost to the point that they would have had to tear off the rest of her robe to continue. Luckily she was able to keep that half of her dignity and was soon rewarded by the sound of a scroll snapping shut. They're all done. Now Hinata-chan, Haku-chan, we have to leave here. There's no doubt Hiashi will be looking for you both and it's clear they already know of Hinata-chan's involvement with me, so this will be one of the first places they look. Hinata, go ahead and change, then we'll leave. B. But what about your stuff and Naruto-kun? Even though she was in such despair, she still had enough energy left to worry about him. It brought a smile to his face. Don't worry about that, Hinata-chan. I have everything I need in places other than this dump, and with my girlfriend and friends at my side, I don't need to worry about anything here. Now go change quick, we need to get moving. He was trying to console her, but the urgency in his tone was not lost on any of them. So Hinata rushed into the bedroom and quickly changed as Naruto ran around the kitchen and living area grabbing what he could of the food items and anything that wasn't too broken to salvage. The Hyuga had definitely done a number on his apartment, that was for sure. As soon as the bedroom door was open, he dashed in and grabbed a few essentials, including a secret stash of ninja supplies he kept hidden under some loose floorboards, and sealed it all away before leading them away from the apartment. Each of them were keeping their eyes open as they sped across the rooftops, away from anything they knew, as they came upon the section of town that they would all get to know much better. Suddenly Naruto dropped down to the street as the merchant sector gave way to residential areas, leaving the buildings too far apart for the girls to jump, and too far for Naruto to jump without causing damage on his landing. They quickly sped through the streets, ignoring anyone who called out to them as they ran. After 5 minutes of weaving in and out of anyone in their way, they skidded to a stop in front of a tall iron gate that was familiar to all but one of them. Hinata's eyes widened when Naruto went to open the gate and she grabbed his arm. Naruto-kun, do you know whose house this is? We can't go in there, it's been forbidden by Hokage-sama. Yes, I know whose it is. It's mine. I'll explain when we get inside. He gently removed her shocked hand from his arm and opened the gate before pushing them through and locking it behind them. He repeated the process again as he ushered them through the front door. When the door was closed and locked, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Safe. Both girls looked around at the living room. It was enough for a family, that much they could see. The room looked clean and the couches looked very comfortable. So comfortable that they all collapsed into them, still breathing a bit heavily from their run. When they had regained their normal intake of air, the two girls looked at Naruto. The question was evident in their eyes, but he ignored it. He had other issues to deal with right now. I know I told you I would explain, but it will have to wait until later. Get settled in a while. There are 3 rooms upstairs, the one towards the front is mine. Here is a scroll with what I could get from my apartment, there is some food in there. Instant stuff mostly. It's not much, but it'll have to do for now. If you'll excuse me, I need to go see Hokage Gigi now. He got up to leave when another pair of hands shot out and grabbed both his arms this time. What do you mean get settled in? Okay, quick. Hinata-chan clearly has no place to go right now, so I'm not about to let her sleep on the streets. Plus Hiyashi will be looking for her, so there is no way I'm going to let her walk around town until I get this sorted out. Haku-chan can't go out right now either because they know you took Hinata, so you would know where she went and they would use you to find her. Besides, you don't have a place either, so both of you will stay here. Now I have to go. If a clone is in your way, just punch it or something. Have fun. Before they could say anything further, he was out the door and locking it behind him, leaving both girls to look at each other wondering what could be so important, though they had an idea it dealt with the Hyuga. Well, since we can't go anywhere, we might as well do as he said. First thing I'm doing though is getting a shower. Come on, Hinata-chan, let's find a bathroom. To her benefit, Hinata was taking things rather well. Sure, she was disowned, basically a prisoner for her safety and in a house that she never thought anyone would enter, but she was also going to be living with her Naruto-kun. Even if Haku was staying there too, it was almost like they would be married. They would see each other every day that they didn't have missions. They would eat together and just laze around together. The only thing that kept them short of being as close as a real married couple was that they wouldn't be sleeping together. They were far too young for that, and though she had fantasized about it once or twice, she'd always envisioned them living like this when they were much older than they were now. When she had finished musing to herself, she found that she was in a large bathroom and Haku was already halfway undressed. Slightly embarrassed at the thought of bathing with someone else, she chalked it up as yet another new experience for the day and started to disrobe herself. Now, tell me, whose house are we in? Naruto was furious. No, he was well beyond that. The absolute nerve of that damned Hyuga head. There was a good side to all this, and that was the only thing keeping him calm as he made his way to the council chambers. He saw the normal Anbu guards there, and after explaining to them 7 times that he had urgent business with the Hokage, and that it could be important to the future of the village, he finally made one of them cave into telling the old man that he was here. Much to their annoyance, he was immediately given approval to enter. Which he did, but not in a way they had expected. Inside the council chamber had been argument and counter-argument traded back and forth over just what to do about Danzo. No one had seen the man since he showed up at the meeting yesterday, and that only served to put more pressure on them. It was somewhat of a reprieve then, when they were told that Naruto was waiting for admittance for some important reason. What they didn't expect was that when the blonde entered the room, he was immediately pinned against the wall by Hiashi. "Tell me where she is, boy." He steeled his glare on Naruto as he made his demand. "Where is Hyuga-san? Don't play dumb with me, brat. Where is Hinata?" Naruto smirked. "You mean your daughter Hyuga Hinata? She is no daughter of mine. She has disgraced the clan, and as such she has been removed from it. Now tell me where that failure is before I make you tell me." "That is enough, Hiashi." Hiruzen stood up and spoke with authority. "This is clan matters, Hokage-sama, and as such I am within my rights to demand the information I seek." He turned his head once more towards his captive. "Now tell me, boy, where is she?" Naruto only smirked at him and held out his tongue. The Hyuga head channeled chakra into his hand. "So be it. Even if you cannot speak, we will find her one way or another." He thrust his hand forward, and to the horror of those present struck Naruto directly in the heart. Cries of pain echoed through the room as the Anbu rushed in ready for anything. What they found was either greatly upsetting or highly amusing. Hyuga Hiashi stood near the wall with Naruto held off the ground, Byakugan blazing and his hand pressed firmly against the boy's chest as a grin crossed his face. On the other side of the room, another Naruto sat in the corner of the room, writhing in mock pain and letting loose quite a racket. No one was sure which sight to look at until the Hokage coughed. With all eyes on him, he waved the Anbu out before speaking. "If you are quite done, Hiashi, we seem to have important matters to discuss. For starters, the attempted assassination of a genin-rank shinobi of the Leaf by the head of the Hyuga clan." As he said this, Naruto's clone finally expired, and in a poof of smoke Hiashi was left holding nothing but air. He turned and made to rush the boy again, but found his path to be blocked by a couple of the other clan heads. Now there is obviously an explanation for all of this, and I am rather anxious to hear about what could make the head of the Hyuga clan lose his temper to such a state that he would attack a fellow ninja of the Leaf in front of the cage of the village. He sat back in his seat and pressed his fingers together, waiting for the explanation to come. "Hokage-sama, I found out that Hinata was seen around with this boy. An act which against our clan laws. When she refused to cease her actions, we were going to place the seal on her. She was rescued by this boy's teammate, and I have no doubt that he knows where she is." "I see. A valid explanation. Now Naruto, why are you harboring someone involved in a clan matter?" The Hokage's glare was intense, and Naruto couldn't help but shrink back a little. "Ahem, Hokage-sama. The actions Hyuga Hiashi took are indeed correct." Hiashi smiled as he found things going his way. "But the order he said them in is not. I hardly see how that is relevant." Hiashi scoffed at the boy's meager defense. "Oh, but it is, Hyuga-san." Naruto's grin told everyone that the trickster was back along with his confidence, and this wasn't going to end well for his target. "I was told by the witness of the events, Momochi Haku, that after Hinata-chan's refusal to obey your orders, you let her know that her punishment would be banishment, to be disowned by her family, and to have the caged bird seal placed upon her." The looks sent at Hiashi told him just whose side most of the council was on already. "After half stripping her in front of the Hyuga council, one of your elders drew this seal on her skin." He unfurled the scroll to show everyone what he copied off of Hinata. "Do you deny this?" Hiashi looked at the scroll and knew it was the same one that was put on his former daughter. As much as he hated the boy, he would not bring his integrity into question. "That is correct. Before continuing, I would like to point out a few pieces of this seal. It is indeed the caged bird seal, however there are a few pieces added. This spot here, which was over her heart, allowed for immediate execution should the person activating the seal desire. Over here, near where her left ear would be, is a small seal that would render the target completely incompetent once the seal was activated. Finally here, this portion was on her lower back and would seal up all the target's chakra once the seal was finalized. They could all see that Hiashi knew none of this as his shock was evident. That cannot be true. You're making that up. Hokage-sama, you should at least know a chakra sealing configuration. Please inspect this and tell us what you see. Naruto shoved the scroll down the table to where Sarutobi could see it as he glared at the Hyuga head. The man donned his glasses and looked over the markings. He checked each of the 3 indicated sections and was surprised and now very angry at the Hyuga. Hiashi. His tone was even and cold. There was no doubt that he was deadly serious. What Naruto-kun says is true. This is indeed a chakra sealing configuration. I do not know the exact meanings of the other 2, but the one by the ear is similar to a memory modification seal, and the one near the heart shows similarities to portions of Shiki Fujin. The blood was instantly drained from Hiashi's face, showing just how serious that was. See. Now for the kicker. Everyone turned to the blonde, who didn't seem fazed at all by the revelation. Just before you were going to set the seal into place, you told Hinata-chan 2 things. First, you told her she was no longer a Hyuga. Then, you told her she was no longer your daughter. He fixed a dangerous gaze on the usually imposing man without batting an eyelash. Hiashi's blood came back to his face a bit as he matched Naruto's eyes. And what does that matter, boy? She will still receive the seal, though I shall make sure it is the correct one this time. Hiashi narrowed his eyes once again, taking control of his emotions. No, Hyuga-san, you will not touch her. You said it yourself, she is no longer a Hyuga and she is no longer your daughter. As such, anything you attempt to do to her now is considered an unlawful attack on a loyal ninja of Konoha. You and your clan have no claim over her since you dismissed her before setting the seal in place, as per your own clan laws. They couldn't believe it. A genin that wasn't even part of a clan just beat the head Hyuga with his own rules. Hiashi was furious, but there was nothing that he could do. Sarutobi was smiling at the ingeniousness of it all. He is correct, Hiashi. Since you labeled her as no longer a Hyuga, both in the hospital and in front of us repeatedly just moments ago, the clan laws were removed with her status, and since you disowned her as family, you no longer have stake over her well-being. It pains me that you would have taken this so far, but now you must deal with the result of your rash actions. A Byakugan wielder that is outside the realms of the Hyuga clan influence. Hiashi was boiling now. Fine. If you'll excuse me, I have search teams to recall. He headed for the door but was never able to reach it. Oh, Hyuga-san. Oh, how the man was beginning to hate that ringing note in the child's voice. Like the doomsday bells tolling every time he heard it. We still have some things to discuss. Namely, actions taken by your clan against me. Hiruzen knew this could only end badly, but the boy had every right to what was coming and there was nothing Hiashi or he could do about it. The targeted man turned around slowly and glared with as much hate and malice as he could. Yesterday your clan, as you had told this council, inspected my apartment. What I found when I got there was not what I had left it as when I last saw it. I admit to breaking the door, but inside there was not a single piece of furniture left intact. I was lucky to scrounge a couple sets of clothing for Hinata and Haku to change into from their hospital garb. I think the only thing that was still mostly whole was my food, but that isn't surprising considering I was almost out and it was mostly instant meals. Then there is your attempted assault on my person as soon as I walked into this room. I'll let that one slide though since it was only a clone, but I will be asking for recompense for my destroyed property. He gave a cheeky smile at the man, who in turn gritted his teeth and clenched his fists as he stomped out from the chamber, slamming the door behind him. That went well. A collective sigh went through the room as everyone let out the breaths they hadn't realized they had been holding. Naruto-san, that was a dangerous game you played. Inoichi was wiping the sweat from his brow. I swear I haven't seen bigger balls on an ox. Crude, but getting her point across as she grinned at him. No wonder my son felt so threatened by you. It was the Hokage though who was the most collected. Was what you said about these seals true, Naruto? Inquisitive glances went between the blonde and the old man. Hi. Every word of it. Good. Then I don't have to double check later. Jaws hit the table as the Hokage relaxed into his chair with his hands behind his head. Nay, Naruto-san, where did you learn so much about seals? And the Hyuga clan laws for that matter. You would be surprised what you can find in the trash, Nara-san. Well, I would be surprised if you found anything useful in it if you came after me. Though I have to say I'm surprised how many people seem to not like the art. I think I've seen more brand new books on seals in trash than any other type of jutsu. Such a shame. Naruto-san, sealing is one of the more difficult subjects to grasp, let alone hold one's attention. It's for that reason that it was taken out of the academy curriculum. I don't see what's so difficult about it. It seems pretty straightforward to me. I'm kind of surprised the Aburame don't take a higher interest in seals. I mean, suppose you go up against someone who has a counter for your insects. Since they take most of your chakra to function, wouldn't seals be the perfect backup plan? Cold hard logic against one of the most intelligent clans in the village. A bold move by any standard. Hi, Naruto-san. However, none of our clan have shown an adequate amount of skill in the task to utilize it properly. I see. Pity. Naruto-kun, do you happen to have seal-making supplies with you? Hiruzen was now curious at the boy's skill. Hi, just what I have left over from copying the seal that was on Hinata down. Why? Could you draw us a seal, please? Naruto cocked an eyebrow. Any particular one you want? The Hokage hadn't really thought about it, so he decided on something that should be easy. How about an exploding tag? Sure. What kind? Pardon. What kind of exploding tag? I wasn't aware there were kinds. Wow. You all need to dig into a good sealing book sometime. At least learn what's out there so you know what you're looking at. A 12-year-old boy was telling the aged Hokage of Konoha that he needed to learn more. The man hailed as the professor. It was too much as the room erupted into fits of laughter. Even Sarutobi himself joined in at the irony. Whatever one you feel like making, Naruto, then you can explain to us how it's different than a normal exploding tag, okay? Fine. He took out a sheet of paper and placed his ink bottle beside him along with a stack of senbon and a brush. Removing the cap from the ink jar, he got to work. Just as Haku had been that morning, so were the council, mesmerized by the fluid dancing of the brush across the page as intricate designs formed on the surface. It was a large paper for a tag, but they ignored it as they were too entranced with the brush strokes as symbols seemed to float out of the brush and onto the paper. They blinked as the motion was interrupted by a jingle of metal and a small poof of smoke. Then more symbols were added until Naruto finally lifted his brush and resealed the ink jar. It had seemed like a full-length ballet, yet the entire process had taken only a few minutes. The work was astonishing as they now saw the seal in its entirety. While nothing near the intricacy of the Shiki Fujin, it was rather impressive for an exploding tag. The only problem was that the paper was about 4 times the width and 3 times the height of a normal tag. Well, that was very beautiful, Naruto-san, but it isn't very practical. Who says I'm finished, Nara-san? I just thought you might want to see the full seal and get an explanation before I finalize it. Naruto said with a smirk before beginning the explanation of the seal he just made. Now the main seal sets off an explosion. Not very large, but it doesn't need to be for this one. These seals on the sides are containment seals that hold whatever number of whatever object you want. In this case, senbon, all facing the same edge of the tag. These symbols here link the explosive seal to the containment seal. When triggered, the senbon will release just before the explosion goes off, sending the senbon in the direction that their edge of the tag is facing. The whole thing is set with a delay for a surprise trap. Complex. Just a little. He lost some of them halfway through and could see it on their faces. Basically, it explodes and sends projectiles in the direction you want it to. The rest of the heads nodded at that. You mentioned it wasn't finished. Inoichi reminded him. Naruto stood up to put himself over top of the paper and pressed his hand on it. They saw him murmur something before there was a bright flash of chakra that they had to turn away from. There, now it's finished. What they saw when they turned back around looked nothing like what was there previously. Instead of one big seal on a large sheet of paper, there was now 24 small and vastly different seals repeated over the paper. The main difference was each seal had 2 strokes on one side forming what looked to be an arrow. All that's left is to cut them apart and set them up like you would any other exploding tag. I find the best use for these to be an advanced setup trap that you would chase a target into. When they pass it, the delay shoots the Senbon out and hits them from behind. You could use it as an emergency trap too. Either to hit someone chasing you, though then you run the risk of having to dodge the Senbon as well, or set them sideways to take out some of a group of pursuers if they are in a winged formation. Hell, if you're quick enough you could slap one on an enemy's shoulder facing his head, and if he's too slow getting it off it'll be lights out real quick. My god, he's like a miniature Minato. Naruto and Sarutobi almost choked at the comment but managed to keep their straight faces. Thank you for the compliment, Inuzuka-san. I am humbled that you would compare me to the Yondaime. Naruto-san. Would it be possible for us to get an example tag from you of this design? I wish to present it at my clan's next council meeting. Sure, Akamichi-san. You can all have some if you like. Taking out a kunai, he sliced up the paper into individual tags, each half the size of a normal explosive note. Dividing them up into 8 piles of 3, he passed 1 pile to each of the clan heads present and 1 pile to the Hokage before pocketing the remainder. Sarutobi took one of the tags and looked it over before setting it down on the table facing an unoccupied side with a blank wall behind it. Activating the tag, he made sure everyone had their ears covered before setting the tag off. As Naruto said, there was a delay, and a couple seconds after the tag was tripped and small blast was seen and heard as the door to the room was flung open and 2 battle-ready Anbu were looking around frantically to find the threat. Instead, all they found were 6 adults looking between one smiling boy and a wall where there were now 8 Senbon evenly spread in a straight line embedded halfway into its surface. Hokage-sama, are you unharmed? The man waved them off in a daze and managed to spit out a slow, just fine, as he took in what just happened. Amazing. Could they get any better? The laughter of a child was the immediate answer they got, to their slight annoyance. I'm guessing that means it does. You people are thinking far too two-dimensional. The comment confused them until Shikaku Nara realized the meaning. On a battlefield there is seldom a flat surface. Even more so in the forests of Konoha. If someone layers more than one of these staggered on an uneven surface, say a branch, once triggered you could have a rain of weapons that covers a radius around that object. You could take out a small army with enough of them, and they would never know what hit them. One could almost see chibi versions of the clan heads dancing on top of their actual heads. If they had such tactical tags as this, they wouldn't just be the top country the elemental nations. They would completely overshadow everyone else, and the best part of it was that without knowledge of how the seal works, no one could copy it. Well, I think we'll need to make a whole new division in the ninja ranks to cover this. If we can produce more variety of seals that are difficult to reverse engineer, we shouldn't waste such a resource. Uzumaki Naruto, you have just proven yourself invaluable to this village. Thank you, Inoichi-san. Now, if you don't mind, I have some guests at my house that I need to see after. If you need to summon me, Hokage-sama knows where I can be found. Just don't try to force your way inside. With that, Naruto bowed low and left amidst a chorus of applause. On his way out, he was stopped at the door as the civilian council members decided to show up. Ah, Uzumaki. Just the person we wanted to see. I bid you to stay, we have some things that we need to discuss. The threat in the pudgy man's tone was all too apparent as he and the rest of the civilians shoved their way into the room. Sarutobi groaned in defeat. The fun was over and he would now have to deal with his actions last night. Go ahead, Naruto-kun. I'll handle this. Hokage-sama, this involves the Uzumaki boy directly. He is required to stay. As I have pressing matters at the moment, I will have to decline. I reserve my right to have a person of my choosing to speak in my stead. I choose Nara Shikaku as the holder of my trust in this case if he agrees to it. Why Nara-sama? Well, I would have said Hokage-sama, but he'll be busy defending himself as well, I'm sure. I trust Nara-san to do the right thing. Which in this case is most likely falling asleep. Good day. Before they could retort, he was out the door and away from the tower laughing. I'm beginning to see why my son uses the word troublesome so much after being around that kid. Nara announced as the civilian council members begrudgingly took their seats. Now what is this about? Though he would have rather left the room as well, Sarutobi resigned himself to his duties of listening to the most likely, pointless drivel of the civilian council. Koharu was the first to speak. Hokage-sama, it has come to our attention that one Uzumaki Naruto attempted to attack one Uchiha Sasuke on their last mission together. As guardians of said Uchiha, Mitokado Homura and myself wish to raise our concerns about this issue. We would also like to remind the council that Uchiha Sasuke is the last remaining Uchiha in Konohagakure, and as such his loyalties must remain high if we wish to keep him here to rebuild the Uchiha and revive the Sharingan. Nara Shikaku murmured lowly so that few could hear. How could we forget he's the last one? You remind us almost daily. He earned a few snorts of acknowledgement from those close enough to make out his ramblings. I understand that you too would want to be here for this out of concern for your charge, however, why must the rest of the council be present? Once again, this is a ninja matter, and as such they would not have jurisdiction over either party. Inoichi reasoned out, earning nods from his fellow ninja. They are here because they are concerned about the future prospects of their families. As they hope to one day petition for their female family members to one day assist in the rebuilding of the Uchiha clan, they are concerned as to how this even will be handled. Homura explained to them, gesturing to those who had high hopes of marrying someone into one of the most prestigious clans in Konoha. The Hokage finished lighting his pipe, which he had been taking this time to refill. Taking a moment to gather his thoughts, he looked over to the civilians and started pointing to each council member among them. You five are dismissed. I don't care what prospects you have with the Uchiha's future, they do not belong in this discussion. Koharu and Homura may stay as they have direct affiliations with the boy. They, however, will only be present so long as they don't tempt me to decide otherwise. The council was shocked. Normally he would just brush things off and continue, but he left no room for question this time. But Hokage-sama, why shouldn't we be allowed to stay? Surely this meeting will not involve anything life-threatening to hear. Junzo stated, surprised that the Sandaime was so quick to dismiss them. No, it does not, but it is a ninja matter regardless, and you will not be present for it. The old man replied evenly. Quote, It's that boy, isn't it? He's poisoned your mind, Sarutobi. He'll be the death of us yet if you keep these actions up. Denbi received a harsh glare from not only Hiruzen, but also many of the ninja present. If that boy has done anything to me, it has been to open my eyes to the stagnant actions of this room. Now, unless you wish to further aggravate my temper, I suggest you remove yourselves from this chamber before it is done for you. Once again the council members stood and walked out of the room. Since they didn't have a reasonable target for their glares this time, they instead choose to point their noses in the air like the ignorant fools they were. Once the door shut, Sarutobi turned back to his former teammates. Now, what was it that you heard about this supposed attempt on the Uchiha's well-being? Turning their attention back to the man after watching their support leave, they began their plea. Hokage-sama, we were told that after an argument, that boy attacked Uchiha Sasuke and sent him through a door. After that the boy was under its influence as he advanced on Uchiha-sama. Hokage-sama, that boy is unstable and something must be done to stop him. Homura stated what he knew of the situation based off of what Sasuke told him. Is that all? Sarutobi inquired as his headache started to form. What more could you possibly need to know, Hokage-sama? Koharu asked indignantly. How about what happened to aggravate Uzumaki-san to that point? Or how about what calmed him down enough to not make that pompous fool into a red stain on their surroundings? Nara Shikaku mentioned as he rose his head off his arms. If something was interesting enough to keep a Nara awake, then the others knew they should be listening. Not that they weren't at the first mention of the Kyuubi's possible influence. Hiruzen looked back at his advisors, expecting them to at least make up an excuse. When they came up short, he sighed at their stupidity. Since you don't seem to know the situation, then allow me to fill in the blanks. It was Uchiha Sasuke who attempted to attack Momochi Haku in order to sat his anger at Uzumaki Naruto for overshadowing him in strength and wit. It was Uzumaki Naruto who took the blade meant for Momochi Haku and the anger at the actions of Uchiha Sasuke that drove him to attack. I think if I were stabbed by a comrade who was attempting to stab another comrade, I would be furious enough to act out as well. I believe you should be happy that Sasuke made it back in one piece and someone found a way to calm Naruto, as Nara-san said. The two advisors flapped their gums a few times trying to think up a way to recover the situation. Meanwhile, the ninja were getting rather angry at the thought of a supposedly loyal ninja harming someone just out of spite. Hokage-sama, we must punish the boy for this, Choza said, making Kaharu and Homura smile at the hope of turning someone to their side. It's preposterous that he would try to stab anyone who isn't a threat to his person or the mission at large. Attacking for any other reason is no better than murder. I agree with Akamichi-san. Uchiha Sasuke will need to be punished in some way for his actions. Shibi followed up. Tsume was growling. He attacked a pack mate. He should be tried for treason. At this the advisors paled. And no, you can't do such a thing to Uchiha-sama. He must stay content. Kaharu blurted out. And what? Start sacrificing our ninja to him just to sat his bloodlust. I think I'd rather just kill him and damn the Uchiha. Tsume once again growled out. While I disagree with the boy's actions, I will agree that the Sharingan is too powerful to let rot. Instead, I believe, since no one was actually permanently disabled or killed, that he undergo some harsh punishment for his actions. Inoichi voiced his own opinion. Before we come to any conclusions, I would like to reiterate the remainder of the mission to Wave. I believe the actions before this event should be brought to light, and we will discuss the punishment for all three members of Team 7 at the end. At the Hokage's words, everyone's head turned back towards him. If the rest of the mission was anything to be aware of, then they wanted to make sure they got every fact straight. First, we will discuss Inuzuka Kiba. Tsume shot her head up at the mention of her son's name. While not part of any direct assault, he did at one point make suspicious actions against Uzumaki Naruto. He is the least of the problems amongst the three. He ignored Naruto when said boy had been stabbed. Instead, choosing to hold the civilian family they were charged with guarding back when they tried to help him instead. He was involved in many petty arguments and apparently made unwanted advances on Momochi Haku, which were of course denied. Aside from that, his only notable action during the mission was to help defuse a situation when the Uchiha got out of hand by knocking him unconscious. I am placing the charges against him at general misconduct, endangering the life of an ally and creating unrest in a mission. Tsume hung her head in shame, as well as an attempt to calm her anger. When she spoke, her tone was low and even. Hokage-sama, I ask that I be allowed to dole out the punishment for my son, of Inuzuka Kiba, as his clan leader. He will not be shown leniency in the slightest, I assure you. Is this acceptable? Receiving no response either way, he accepted her plea. Very well, Tsume. Your son's punishment will be partially up to you. When the kunoichi made to question his phrase, he waved her off. Next is Haruno Sakura. Hokage-sama, why was Isako not allowed to stay if this concerns her daughter? Kaharu asked, clearly confused. Because, while it concerns her daughter, she would have had no say in the girl's punishment. I decided it would be best to spare my ninja's sensitive ears from her for now. Despite their tactics to cause grief to get their way, the two advisors could only agree that the reprieve would be nice. So, Haruno Sakura. She was involved in the same suspicious actions against Uzumaki Naruto as well as the negligence in treating him when he was injured. She also was involved in petty arguments, but her serious issues arose later in the mission. When Haku was first brought back to Tezuna's house, she was involved in a plot to seriously harm, if not kill, the girl. While Haku was formerly an enemy during the mission, it had already been cleared by their sensei, Hitaki Kakashi, that she would remain unharmed as long as she cooperated. Thus, Sakura's actions fall into the insubordination category. Also, she was attempting to assault a cooperative captive without due course. It should also be noted that she had made a previous attempt to attack the girl as they were on the bridge, right after their second encounter with Zabuza. The charges against Haruno Sakura stand at general misconduct, endangering an ally, creating unrest, and attempted assault on a cooperating captive. Are the terms acceptable? Once again, he allowed anyone to voice their opinions. From what I hear around town, it's a pity we can't throw a noise ordinance onto that pile. Shikaku mentioned. As much as we'd like to, these are charges for a ninja mission. That issue would be a civilian and ninja matter, and I'm not about to welcome them back in here right now. Sarutobi grimaced at the thought of Isako trying to defend her daughter's volume level, but managed to maintain the serious atmosphere. Seeing no one was about to complain about his accusations, he continued. Very well, we will move on to Uchiha Sasuke, but first I will remind you both that you are only here as witnesses and you have no say in this matter. He pointed at his two former teammates, making sure his point sank in before his decree began. First, I want to say, few times have I had such a detestable explanation of a ninja on duty as I was faced with when concerning the Uchiha. Not only did he participate in everything the others did, but on top of that he has a superiority complex that goes far beyond any normal person's should, let alone a ninja. This village has spoiled him rotten and it has gone directly to his head. As his guardians, you two should be held directly responsible for his actions as well. As it stands, I will be assigning Inoichi-san to check Sasuke's mental stability on a regular basis. The advisors began to argue but were stopped short at Hiruzen's harsh glare. During the wave mission he not only endangered himself, but he risked his own teammates' lives and even attempted to end the life of an innocent, twice. He, along with Sakura, attempted to attack an unconscious Haku, but they were stopped by Kakashi, Naruto and Kiba. Later on in the mission, after those same three came back from dealing with the rest of Gado's thugs, he once again attempted to kill Haku. He was thwarted that time by Naruto, who used Kawarimi to switch places with Haku, thus taking the knife meant for her. It was this action that brought out his enraged state. The mere idea that the Uchiha would sink so low made him angry enough that in his tired state from fighting so much he turned to the largest pool of chakra he had left. We can be thankful that Haku was there to calm him down with a few kind words. Despite his aggravation, the Hokage managed to smile at the memory of Haku's confessed affections and her understanding of the blonde's feelings for Hinata. Aside from that, he also did an unforgivable act during the battle on the bridge. He saw himself in danger and used the closest thing to him for a Kawarimi. He knew this next portion of information would not go over well with at least one member of the council. He used Inuzuka Kiba to save his own hide, forcing the boy to take the hit meant for himself. Just as he expected, Sume leapt out of her seat with killing intent rolling off of her. He did what? I demand he be tried for attempted murder, Hokage-sama. This is unacceptable for any ninja of any village, last of their line or not. How dare he use my son to save his own skin? The woman seemed less like a clan head and more like a rabid dog as she snarled out a few choice words. Sume, sit. It took a moment for her to recompose herself, but eventually she managed to seat herself, though she was still seething. Hokage-sama, surely this is a fabrication. I find it hard to believe that one of our ninja would stoop so low. Akamichi-san, I wish that were so, but as it stands the mission report was written by Hitaki Kakashi, their sensei, and verified when discussed with himself, Momochi Haku and Uzumaki Naruto. All of whom I believe would not falsify a report. As it stands, I am charging Uchiha Sasuke with attempted murder of both a fellow Konoha shinobi and a cooperating captive. On top of that will be insubordination, endangerment of the mission at large, and treason. The advisors looked at him horrified while even the ninja side looked a little uncertain, with the exception of Sume. The charges were steep and the punishments that went along with them could be deadly if so desired. Hokage-sama, if I may. Aburame Shibi's head didn't even seem to move, but his deep bass voice was unique enough that everyone knew he was talking, even with his mouth hidden behind the collar of his coat. While the Uchiha's actions are despicable, I believe that we should not waste the Sharingan, if possible. Instead, I agree to sessions with Yamanaka-san as well as other punishments so long as they keep him available to one day reproduce. Perhaps at that time we can dispose of him if we see fit, once we have another Sharingan in the village. Are you insane? He already attacked my son, yours could be next. If that is the case, as long as he does not die and is still in capable condition to stay in active duty, then I will consider it no more than a schoolyard fight that went a little overboard. Shibi replied calmly. It is in our best interest to keep the boy active so that it is still known that we possess a Sharingan wielder. So long as his dojutsu remains viable, we should keep him at hand. He's right, but we will need to figure out a punishment suitable for him and the rest of his team. Inoichi pondered aloud. Perhaps some team building exercises for starters. It sounds like that whole team could use them. Choza chimed in. Put them on D ranks as well. We don't need them going back out on a cooperative mission again until we're sure they're ready. Shikaku reasoned. So, team building and D ranks for the whole team with Sasuke making visits to Inoichi. I will also fine the Uchiha for these actions, steeply. A portion of that fine will go to the Inuzuka for the harm done there, with other portions going to both Uzumaki Naruto and Momochi Haku for damages done to them as well. Is there anything else to add? Looking around, he saw no moves for a response, though he could see many wheels turning. Well then, if you think of any other punishments, let us know at a future meeting, as I find these less than adequate myself for the actions he has taken. Should we deem them acceptable, then we will append them to their charges. Dismissed. Before the two elders could catch him, Sarutobi was out the door and gone. Well, that went well. Good luck with your son soon, but try not to be too harsh with him. He was one of the victims too, even if he didn't act perfectly the whole time. Choza said as he rested a comforting hand on the woman's shoulder. Yeah, I'll deal with him, but I'd much rather deal with that Uchiha prick. Give me 5 minutes with him and having children will be the least of his worries. She didn't pay attention as the men of the room squirmed a little as she stomped out of the chamber. She's a bit frightening. Yeah, but that's because she expects everyone to be loyal without question. Just like the rest of us. Chapter 10. A Night Out. He was still musing over his actions in the council chambers as he walked into the front yard. It was nice having a place away from crowded streets. There weren't nearly as many glares on his walk here, which was a big plus, and since there were so few people here, the chance of hate riots showing up at his doorstep would be down for at least a little while, giving him time to set up security measures. Being as this was now officially his property, by law he was allowed to protect it by any means he saw fit. Which basically meant that if he wanted to make the whole thing one big exploding note, he could, as long as it didn't damage anything off his property. Not that he would go that far, of course. He wasn't about to let his home get blown to smithereens when he finally had a place of his own just because some drunk asshole decided to climb his fence some night to piss on his doorstep. He would, however, make sure that said drunk would never be able to make it to his doorstep. The doorstep he was now standing on. The doorstep in front of the door to his house. He smiled as he thought about how good that sounded. Shaking his head, he unlocked the door and walked inside. Turning around, he locked it again just before two sets of hands grabbed him from behind and dragged him over to the couch. He was about to get up to see what was happening, but was forced back down as a giggling girl landed on top of him and kissed him deeply. Welcome back, Naruto-kun, Hinata said happily before kissing him again. You seem to be in a better mood than you were this morning. And from the smell of it, I'm guessing the shower works. His thoughts were cut off, however, as Hinata sat up on his waist and a new pair of lips met his. Ha, Haku-chan. Hi, Hinata-chan. Ha. The gears that had been working so feverishly lately suddenly ground to a halt at the new actions that were too much an overload on his system. Hinata-chan and I had a good long talk while you were away. We decided that it would be very unfair to have you two messing around here, while I'm in the same house with nothing to do, so we took my suggestion from Wave and decided to share you. At least for now, Haku said with a smile. We agreed that at the moment there just isn't anyone our age mature enough to be with us better than you, so I hope you don't mind, Naruto-kun. Hinata bit her lower lip as she looked at him and tried not to blush too deeply. Well, I guess if you're okay with it, Hinata-chan. I promised you I wouldn't leave you, so this is completely your decision. The hamster wheel inside of his head was beginning to struggle once again. Wow. Even when faced with every guy's fantasy, he differs to you. I'm so jealous, Hinata-chan. Haku mocked the younger girl, causing her to blush deeply once more. Naruto-kun, it isn't fair to any of us in our current situation to have to sit around and do nothing so no one feels left out. This way no one is left out. Hinata finalized the deal with a peck to his lips. Okay then. Well, now that that's out of the way, how about we learn what our boyfriend had to do that was so important that he had to leave two gorgeous women alone in his house. Both girls stared holes into his head. With Hinata still sitting on his stomach and Haku now kneeling beside the couch near his head, Naruto had little choice but to comply. Well, I was rather pissed about what Hiyashi-tem tried to do to Hina-chan, so I went to see the Jiji-san about it. Unfortunately, he was in a meeting with the Ninja Council, but I convinced the guards to let him know I was there and needed to talk to him urgently. Long story short, I turned Hyuga law around on Hiyashi in front of the Ninja Council. That was why your story had to be right, Haku-chan. You see, when he disowned and denounced Hinata-chan as a Hyuga and family member, he immediately made her into a regular ninja of Konoha. Since he did that before activating the seal, he basically made it so that they can't put a seal on her without her permission, otherwise it is considered an aggressive act against a fellow Konoha ninja, which is punishable as a traitorous act. That would most likely lead to imprisonment for all parties involved, or in the worst case, execution. Hinata was only slightly saddened at this point. It still hurt that her own family would do this to her, but part of the talk she had with Haku was about her family, and Haku helped her to see that she is probably better off now, that she wouldn't have people constantly looking down on her and expecting her to do everything perfectly. Aside from that, I gave Hiyashi a bit of a scare when I showed him the seal and explained to him what it would have done. I'll spare you the trauma and leave it as, the caged bird portion of it was probably the nicest part. That surprised even Hiyashi, so my guess is that he had no idea that they added extra seals to it. They, being the Hyuga Council of Elders. My guess is that there is some serious tension going on at the Hyuga compound right now. Oh, that reminds me. There is a serious lack of knowledge of seals in this place. I mean seriously, the council was impressed by a simple projectile explosion tag. It's almost shameful. Naruto-kun. Traveling with Zabuza-tem, I visited a lot of places. Seals aren't something that most people can grasp. We were hard-pressed to find a decent exploding tag in most places. A lot of times we would lay two just in case one was a dud. Naruto looked surprised and appalled at the concept, then thoughtful. If that's the case, then why is it so easy for me? I mean, I can tear apart a lot of seals in no time, and all those books I found were easier than most of the academy lessons, well, the ones I didn't sleep through, that is. I don't know, Naruto-kun, maybe it's just your niche. Hey, though playing pranks was my niche. Well, anyhow, after getting Hinata-chan off the Hyuga most wanted list, I told Hiyashi I wanted compensation for the stuff his clan destroyed in my apartment. But you don't really need any of that stuff here. I mean, this place is fully furnished. I know. I did it more to piss him off than anything. They both looked at him with a deadpan expression. What? It was funny to see the Hyuga head lose his cool. One of these days you are going to do that to the wrong person. And when I do, my two angels will be there to save me. Oh, look at you going all Casanova. Just a few minutes ago you were trying to figure out just why we would share you. Well, can you blame me? I find it easier to just go with the flow. Besides, like you said, it's every guy's fantasy. Well, that and seeing two girls together. As the words left his mouth, a furious blush crept up both of the girls' necks. Naruto looked from one to the other before a trickle of blood dripped out of his nose. Oh, you have got to be kidding. Well, while you were out and we were taking a bath, and we kind of got lost in the discussion of the three of us being together. Haku-chan mentioned that if we were both going to be kissing you, then it would be kind of like us kissing each other. Hinata hid her face in her hands and Haku laughed, though she still had a blush all over her face. What she is trying to get at is that after I said that, she leaned over and kissed me. I kind of decided to tease her a bit and kissed her back, just a little longer than she kissed me for. I'm going to regret this. How much longer? About 15 minutes. Naruto just stared at the two. These girls that both liked him, had decided to share him, and had made out in the bathroom of his house. A second trickle of blood joined the first. Oh, come off it. It's not like we haven't basically done the same thing when you came back. Okay, fine. It's not that big of a deal to imagine two cute, naked females making out in my bathroom. No big deal at all. Naruto argued as he tried to stem the crimson flood. Haku laughed and even Hinata giggled into her hands. Anyhow, that isn't all we did while you were away. We also had a nice long discussion, part of which was about this house. How exactly did you get possession of the house of the former Yondaime Hokage that was off limits to everyone for 12 years? We also heard that some council member tried to get in and fried his brain from some seal, so how did you even get in? Comma. 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 What I'm about to tell you, you can't tell anyone no matter what. At least not yet. Promise me. Both girls looked at him confused and a little worried at his serious tone, but nonetheless promised him they wouldn't tell a soul about whatever they found out. Follow me. He led them up the stairs and into his room. Having them both sit on the bed, he went over to the small black box and opened the lid. They saw him take out a photograph before walking back over. He turned it towards them so they could see it. Haku didn't really know the people, but there were familiarities in them. Hinata, however, knew one of them immediately. That's Yondaime-sama, but who is that woman? Hinata pointed to the red-headed woman in the picture. That is his wife, Kushina. Not many people knew about her. Very few, in fact. They didn't want the Yondaime's enemies to seek revenge through her. I see. Where is she now? She's dead. She died during the Kyuubi attack. Aside from that though, this is a family portrait. The only one I know of. There are 3 people in this picture. But Naruto-kun, I only see Yondaime-sama, and Kushina-sama. There is no one else there. Hinata-chan, take a closer look at where she has her hand. It's on her. Oh my god. She's pregnant. Suddenly everything started clicking into place. Naruto's birthday, the Kyuubi attack, the similarities. Naruto. You're his. Yes. My real name is Namikaze Naruto. I am the son of the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, and his wife Uzumaki Kushina. That is why this is my house. You need to tell people this. Why are you hiding it? If people knew. No. If people knew, then we would have Iwa assassins on our doorstep tomorrow. The less people that know this, the better, and the reason I will keep it a secret is the same reason Minato kept his wife a secret. To protect the ones we love from those that would try to harm us through them. I will not risk anyone precious to me just so I can live an easier life. You cannot tell this to anyone. Promise me. Naruto-kun, we already did promise you. Promise me again. Please. For my sake. We promise, Naruto-kun, we promise. He knelt down and hugged them both close. I will protect you with my life, so never ever put yourself in harm's way for me. The rest of their morning was uneventful as they finished cleaning and setting up their rooms. The girls hadn't explored too much, and Naruto's own rush around wasn't all that extensive, so when they were finished they took a walk around the property to familiarize themselves with its layout. When they got outside, it quickly became apparent whose domain the yard would be. Both Haku and Hinata were dismayed at the state of the gardens and yard, as neither had been tended to in a long time and it was glaringly obvious. The grass was long and had many weeds throughout. The gardens were more wildflowers than anything. They did manage to find a flagstone pathway, but with all the overgrowth it blended in with the surroundings to the point where they just looked like clumps of moss with small flowers growing out of them. The front yard was in no better condition though. The only feature that really stood out was the pathway from the door to the gate. There were bushes along the front of the house that were in dire need of trimming, and the ivy that crept over the outer fence made it look more like a huge hedgerow instead of a barrier. With the mass of greenery hanging off of it, the girls feared that the plants may have damaged whatever supports the fence may have had. They all began a search for gardening tools at the girls' insistence, and even though they hadn't finished their explorations, Haku and Hinata soon had Naruto helping them do yard work. They had more tools than manpower though, so Naruto created a few clones which the girls happily set to specific jobs. This was all well and good until they found out there were some jobs that Naruto just wasn't good at. Weeding would have been fine, if Naruto knew the difference between weeds and flowers. In his defense though, there were a lot of herbs that looked just like wildflowers, and a lot of wildflowers that looked like they would make good decorations. Swordplay and weapon work was easy for him, but, as one clone found out, a pair of clipping shears could best even the most adept swordsman if he didn't know how to use them. One cut, one poof. He began to wonder at how he had done some of his D ranks, then realized that any of the ones involving yard work had been cutting grass. Anything that had been labeled as weeding, he was instructed to just clear out a patch of land that hadn't been planted yet. Even his job for the old farmer was just clearing out the land. After hearing his life against plants, the girls decided there was one place he could be used to effect, so Naruto was delegated to grass cutting and trim work around the gardens. They may have been overrun, but the difference between grass and plant was easy enough for him to differentiate. Not to mention one of the girls would follow him around their current work area as he trimmed the outline of the garden, just to make sure. Soon they had an actual outline of where the borders of the yard really were. Naruto was pleasantly surprised as he really didn't know there were so many gardens. When he had first seen the backyard, he assumed that it was just an open grassy field. Now though, it could be seen that the only place that was really garden-free was the small training area near the back. Most likely because the jutsu and weapons used would have ruined anything living nearby. As the girls worked on the weeds with a clone each to carry away the quickly growing piles, Naruto made quick work of the overgrown yard. Within an hour the backyard was down to a manageable length, and the front was nearly done as well. His next task was ivy removal. Again he was ordered at what he was allowed to rip away and what was going to stay. They left small patches about every 10 feet, each patch being about 2 feet wide. It gave the effect of green columns sticking up in what was revealed to be a stone and mortar wall. This job was his favorite so far. As soon as he was instructed where to pull, he had to actually work a little to get the plants off of their perches. The roots didn't go deep into the mortar, but there were enough of them that they stuck to the wall like glue. This job took another 2 hours and it soon was getting late in the afternoon. With the yard semi-decent now, all three were more than ready to take a break. Let's wash up. Then I'm taking you two out to dinner. The girls squealed and rushed off into the house to get ready as Naruto slowly followed. They would be using the large upstairs bathroom, so he opted to settle for the downstairs one and quickly washed the dirt off himself before heading to his room and getting some clothes. He debated against arming himself, but there was still far too much angst towards him in the village, and he wasn't sure about the Hyuga either. Then there was Danzo, who as far as he knew was still free to do as he pleased. Better to be prepared for anything than find out I need something and don't have it. He really didn't want to have weapons everywhere if he was taking 2 people to dinner, but necessity overruled decency, so he strapped on his ninjata, leaving his still unfamiliar katana behind. He left his shuriken holster lay as well, but strapped on a weapons pouch that held a few kunai, and some of his more custom seals. It was this that met the 2 girls in the living room when they came down dressed for the evening. Naruto-kun. Why the weapons? I don't think the food will fight back. At the sound of Haku's voice he turned in their direction and all brain function ceased for the second time that day. Where they had managed to find the clothing he didn't know, but the 2 wouldn't need weapons since they were dressed to kill. Haku wore a dark blue spaghetti strap dress that came to a few inches above her knees, and a pair of dress shoes. Beside her, Hinata was in a dark purple dress that had a split down one side that went to about where Haku's dress stopped. The back was low cut and a pair of black heels finished off her garb. I hope you don't mind, Naruto-kun, but we borrowed some of your mother's clothing. It was in some storage boxes in my room. Hinata was obviously the more nervous of the 2, as she wasn't used to wearing such clothing in front of people, yet here she was about to go into public with it on. Why you 2 look. Wow. Just wow. I'm surprised my mother's clothes fit you though. I mean, you aren't exactly her size. They must have been old clothes that she just hadn't gotten rid of. From the picture she didn't look that old, so she probably hadn't grown out of them that long before. Haku died off as she realized where she was headed with that statement, and a small uncomfortable silence followed, but was soon broken by the sound of a stomach letting them know it was empty. Hey, I guess we should go get some food. I kind of need to apologize ahead of time though. I'm not exactly welcome in most of the places that you 2 are dressed for, so it may take a while before we find somewhere nice enough. He looked a little dejected at the thought of trying to figure out a place good enough for these 2 beautiful young women. Ichiraku's was definitely out, and most of the other places he knew would tolerate him were only slightly higher scale. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. We're just wearing these because we wanted to look nice for you. The blushing Hyuga turned away a little, but was smiling and stealing glances at him. Yeah, if you want to go to a beef bowl we don't mind. We just didn't really want to walk around in your clothes in town. It probably wouldn't send the best message, especially if a Hyuga saw Hinata. He couldn't help but agree to that, so silently he turned and opened the door before holding an arm out to each side. The two girls happily rushed up and took an arm each as he led them out, taking only brief moments to close and lock the door and gate. They made their way across town in the direction of the restaurants. Along the way they got more than one ogling eye and even a few cat calls. Naruto was suddenly very happy the girls had dressed up as it took attention away from himself. There were a couple less than savory moments though when some of the more haughty men around town tried to steal one of the girls from him or worse cop a feel on one of the ladies. They were greeted by cold steel and a glare from Naruto, a Byakugan enhanced glare from Hinata, or a literal cold shoulder from Haku. It was a rather eventful walk, but they did eventually make it to a restaurant that Naruto hadn't tried to get into before. It was a sushi and sashimi restaurant and they were soon inside and seated much to the blonde's surprise, but it was probably just the fact that the doorman couldn't take his eyes off the two women long enough to see who they were with. Oh well, it got us in anyway. Now hopefully we can get through a meal in peace. The waitress came and took the girl's orders with a smile on her face, then turned to him and the smile turned to a sneer. Like it or not though, he had made it to a table and she was obliged to take his order, but that didn't mean she had to like it. Your orders will be out in a few moments, ladies. Sir, yours may take a little longer. She walked away with shaking fists, which wasn't missed by the trio. What was that all about? Did you do something to make her so pissed off at you? I mean, she's far too old to really be hanging around academy students and such. Don't worry about it. But she seemed so mad. I said don't worry about it. Naruto half snapped. It was obvious he was hiding something, but Haku really hadn't pried into his private life much, and Hinata wasn't able to follow him all the time, so they brushed it off as some chance meeting with bad memories. Maybe he had broken something of hers in the past from one of his pranks and never repaid her for it. They made some idle chat until the girls' meals were brought out and they happily dug in. Their waitress made no move to inform Naruto of the status of his meal. She simply turned and stalked off. By the time the two ladies were almost finished, they were starting to get a little angry. The waitress still hadn't come back with Naruto's meal. It was only sashimi. It shouldn't have taken this long to prepare even if they had to go out and buy all the ingredients, being as the market stores were literally on the next street. Like the perfect gentleman though, Naruto sat there with a smile on his face. He had to apologize every now and then when his stomach reminded him of its needs, but other than that he just let them eat their fill. When the waitress did finally come back, it was without Naruto's food, but she was all too quick to give him the bill. We apologize, sir, but the chef had to take the rest of the night off. We won't be able to prepare your order. It was a complete and utter lie. Even as the words left her mouth, the other customers in the place were happily receiving freshly cut dinners. The girls glared at the waitress, but to their surprise Naruto didn't. I see, thank you anyway. We will be on our way then. Naruto-kun, what are you talking about? They obviously have someone preparing food if everyone else is still eating. Even the people that came after us got their orders. Haku argued, clearly not happy with the events. Don't worry about it, Haku-chan. Naruto-kun, this isn't right. Hinata chimed in. He fixed them with a firm glare. I said don't worry about it. Here is your money, we'll be on our way now. He bowed to the waitress and began to walk out. Said waitress held the girls back for a moment. You shouldn't be around someone like that. Who knows what he would do to you if given the chance. If you give me a moment, I will send him away so you can go off in peace. The statement shocked Haku more than Hinata. This wasn't the first time she had seen Naruto get this sort of treatment, nor was this anywhere near the worst she'd seen, though she never really understood why. Haku, on the other hand, was furious. If there were a man half as decent as Naruto-kun, I still wouldn't go near them. Naruto-kun has shown me more gentleness in the past hour than I have seen from a single other person in this village since I came, save for Hokage-sama. Maybe if you weren't so jealous he would be nice to you too. I pity whatever man you ended up with. The waitress made to slap Haku but was stopped mid-swing by a firm grip. She looked over directly into the pale eyes of Hinata, who was glaring at the woman. If you so much as lay a hand on her, I will make sure you cannot walk for a month. To emphasize the point, she placed her other palm at the base of the woman's spine and channeled just enough chakra to bring her discomfort. The waitress tugged her arm free and moved away quickly, but not before calling out one last thing over her shoulder. Damn demon lovers. The two walked out of the restaurant and looked around for Naruto, but couldn't find him. They started to panic but were relieved when they saw him walk out of a small shop across the street. He walked calmly over to them with his hands behind his back. I see you decided to join me finally. I hope you didn't get into any trouble. Naruto-kun, why? Whatever Haku was about to ask was cut off as Naruto reached them and, with a flourish, offered a small bouquet of flowers to each. Hinata's eyes widened at the gesture. Naruto-kun, they're beautiful. She took the offered flowers, light violet nearly matching her eyes, and breathed in their scent. A smile crept across her face as she hugged him tightly. On his other side, Haku was torn between what to do. She wanted her question answered, but she never had anyone give her flowers. She studied the collection of ice blue petals and tried to decide what to do. Her decision was made for her though when Hinata pushed her towards Naruto. Haku was forced to grab the flowers out of the way to save them from being crushed as she stumbled into his arms. She looked at him closely before he leaned in and kissed her. Right in the middle of the street for all to see, she wrapped her arms around him, her inner turmoil forgotten. What the hell? A growling shout rang out through the street. The three groaned as they looked down the street to where three figures stood, with one pointing at them with his mouth hanging open. You said you were with Hinata, and then you go and kiss Haku right in front of her. The boy's companion barked in agreement. Just because she's shy and won't do anything about it doesn't mean you should take advantage of her, you damn womanizer, cheater, baka. The shrieking accompaniment made everyone in the street flinch from the volume. Kiba ran over to Hinata. Don't worry, Hinata. Just because Naruto-tem is cheating on you doesn't mean every guy would. What do you say the two of us go find a quiet spot to get acquainted? He tried to get closer and grab onto her, but was stopped when a strong punch hit him in the chest, surprising everyone. Shy, weak, delicate Hinata just sent strong, brash Kiba sprawling on his ass. Time seemed to stop as no one really knew what to do. At least not until Naruto figured out just what sound would go best with the action. His loud laughter soon filled the street, soon joined by Haku's giggling as Hinata glared down at the boy. Don't you dare touch me, Kiba-san. Just because I'm not a Hyuga anymore doesn't give anyone free rights to pursue me. I will stay with whomever I choose. She walked over, and after calmly moving Haku out of her way, she spent the next couple minutes making out with Naruto in the middle of the street. It wasn't the calm, quick kiss that Haku had given him moments ago, but a full-fledged lip lock complete with tongue. Kiba and Sakura stood, or sat in Kiba's case, in horrified shock at the scene. When the two finally finished, they moved their heads back and smiled at each other, then smiled at Haku, who smiled back. All three then turned to Team 7 and smirked at their reactions. Naruto was suddenly curious about something though. Why is Team 7 walking around together anyway? After Wave I thought you might have disbanded or something. Like the council would allow that doby. Like I said back then, they would do nothing to me. Now Hatake says he's going to have us do pointless bonding training to work on our teamwork. I swear the man has no brain at all. He should be working on getting me stronger. Sasuke said with dismissal, though he seemed a little more angry with something than he let on, giving the impression that simple team building exercises wasn't their full punishment. The ever so humble Uchiha finally graces us with a word. Haku spat at the Avenger. I see the ice slut has lowered herself to keeping the village idiot happy. Try not to breed like rabbits, one moron like him is enough to cover all of Fire Country. At the Pinket's jibe, Haku looked ready to charge. Haku-chan, don't. Attacking a fellow leaf ninja is against the laws unless they make an unwanted move first, like Kiba did with Hinata-chan. Team 7 smiled evilly at her. They could make all the verbal stabs they wanted and get away with it. Besides, they'll make good fodder someday, assuming they live long enough to be that useful. Naruto chuckled again at the smiles now turned sneers. What? You thought that you were the only ones that could toss insults around? Well, keep up on that teamwork training and maybe someday you'll be able to work up to actual combat training. That is if Kakashi-san feels you're ready. After all, the council can force him to teach you, but they can't force him what to teach you. Naruto swung Hinata out to one side to open his other side for Haku, who readily took it. Now, if you don't mind, I need to get some food. Naruto simply walked away down the street as the trio attempted to make a few feeble retorts. He ignored them all though as he chatted with his two ladies. That Dobi. How dare he ignore me like that? Don't worry, Baka. I'll make sure you get the beating of a lifetime, then you'll know the proper humility to show the Uchiha clan. A furious Sasuke could only glare at where the blonde had once been. Womanizing Baka. Just wait, Sasuke-kun will give you what you deserve. Sakura shouted, earning another cringe from everyone in hearing range. And he thinks he can just walk off with Hinata and Haku. I'll show him that there are people more worthy than him to have a pack. Kiba snapped a stick on the ground near where he sat before standing up so quick he nearly dislodged Akamaru and stomping off towards the Inuzuka compound. Out of the three of them, he would be in for the worst night as he would soon discover his added punishments to be wrought on him by his clan. The trio stopped at Ichiraku's despite Naruto's not wanting to stop there that night with two overdressed ladies at his sides. The familiar sound of bells jingling signaled the customer's arrival and they were welcomed into the stand by a jovial Tsuki who had his back turned to them. Ayame soon came out from the back of the stand and when she saw the trio she smiled and smacked her dad on the back to get him to turn around. Oh, I didn't realize you brought company, Naruto. You two ladies look lovely, but shouldn't you be someplace a bit nicer? Don't get me wrong, I don't want to turn away customers, but you are a bit overdressed for a ramen stand. The man remarked. Oji-san, we were already at a sushi restaurant. I was just a little hungrier than what they had to offer. These two already ate, so it'll just be me. Bring out the ramen and keep it coming. He gave the man a big grin which was returned with a knowing half grin and a nod. They knew all too well what the boy went through. Tsuki turned and got to work while Ayame set her elbows on the counter to get the dirt. So which one of you is Naruto-kun's girlfriend? She watched as the boy blushed a bit and scratched his nose. We both are, Ayame-san. It was now the waitress's turn to blush. She hadn't seen that coming from the girl. When she looked closer though she was even more surprised that it was the little Hyuga that she always saw staring at Naruto from around the corner as he ate. Surprise turned to a bit of anger though as she turned back to Naruto. And just what are you trying to swindle yourself into, huh? You can't have two girlfriends. It's not like that, Ayame-nekan, honest. I was just dating Hinata-chan, but I met Haku-chan on a mission and I guess she started to like me too. They decided on their own that they would both date me, I had nothing to do with it, I swear. She looked at him skeptically, then to the two girls who each smiled and nodded with a bit of a blush. Ayame blushed a bit herself again, but fixed another glare on Naruto. If you hurt either of them, I'm going to dump a pot of boiling water on you. She watched his fear-filled eyes grow as he hurriedly nodded his head while the two girls latched onto him protectively. Ayame just smiled and shook her head before being called by her father to serve their customers. 13 bowls of ramen later, Naruto was walking the two girls home. They took their time and walked the now moonlit streets with their heads on his shoulders. Despite all the crap that they had to deal with lately, or rather in spite of it, they had still managed to have a reasonably good time. It wasn't until they were back inside the house that Haku remembered the question she wanted to ask before, but she decided to save it for another day as she didn't want to ruin the contentment that had finally settled over them. With nothing else they could really do though, they soon began to feel the strain from the yard work starting to take its toll. With a couple kisses they bid each other good night, and after double checking of the locks Naruto followed them to bed. If one were to listen closely they would be able to hear what sounded like the howls of a dying dog in the night. Over at the Inuzuka compound there was a gathering of their council along with Sume. They were all glaring dangerously at the boy in front of them. Despite being the boy's mother, Sume looked at her own offspring with disdain after the news she had heard. Her daughter, Hana, sat off to the side since she was required to start getting knowledge of how to handle these types of events if she was going to be considered the next in line to be clan head. Growling, Sume began the verbal abusing of her own son since some physical abuse had already been done before some of the council had been able to stop her and remind he of her position. Inuzuka Kiba, you have disgraced this your family and clan mere moments after graduating from the academy. You tried to force yourself on an unwilling female and then you lost a fight in the middle of the streets. A fight that you started. Hana was growling a little as well at this point from the memory, and none of the council members seemed too pleased either. I would congratulate you on completing an A-rank mission, but instead of hearing praises about your performance on said mission, I had to listen as your actions embarrassed us in front of the council and the Hokage. You were charged with intentions to harm a fellow Konoha ninja. I didn't touch him. Kiba barked out as he attempted to defend himself. All he accomplished was earning a backhanded slap from his mother. You ignored him when he was injured. That's just as bad if not worse. You also argued with your comrades and caused an air of malcontent. She glared at him when he opened his mouth to say something, silencing him with an unspoken threat. And I want to know exactly what these suspicious actions you were involved in entailed. I don't want to hear any complaining either, just the information we seek. Kiba grit his teeth as he knew this wasn't going to end well even if he kept his mouth sealed tight. We were planning on knocking Naruto Tem down a few pegs. We were going to spirit him away and show him just why he shouldn't try showing us up. It was Sasuke's idea. What had sounded like a good idea at the time, was proven quite the opposite as he received another backhand to the other side of his head. So you felt the need to torment a fellow Konoha ninja because he was stronger than you. Did you ever think that maybe he would help you get stronger yourself if you tried being nice to him? Sume asked him, voice now closer to that of an animal than normal. No, he was probably thinking with his balls and trying to prove himself to some female like usual. I swear if we weren't related I would have neutered you ages ago. Hana half mumbled, but made sure it was loud enough for those present to hear. What his reasoning was is unimportant. What is important is that it was wrong. The only reason you should have for attempting such a thing during a mission is if you found a traitor in your midst. Any other reason is inconsequential and can be ruled as treason on your part for endangering a mission for your petty squabbles. They could see Kiba's knuckles whitening as he tightened his fists in anger. Furthermore, you have been found to be irresponsible and are dangerously close to being considered, by us, to be unfit for ninja duties. The pact takes precedence above all else, and if you can't get your ass out of your ego long enough to figure out the difference between what is right for the mission and what your personal grudge is, then we have no choice but to retrain you. Even Hana paled at the thought of being retrained. Kiba nearly fainted. Retraining consisted of, basically, getting the loyalty beaten back into you by the higher-ups in the clan over the course of days or months depending on the severity of the offense. The guilty party would be stripped and kept in a small, arena-type building for the duration, and given just enough food and water to survive. Their partner would be taken from them for the entirety of the event so that they were completely alone throughout the experience. For many in Izuka this was the worst part since their companion became a part of them, a friend through thick and thin that was closer than any other human ever got. The event would include Sume herself, and may even include Hana this time being as she was in training for her future position. If this didn't help him out of his actions, they would most likely take him out of active duty until he got through puberty, or learned to keep a level head. In other words, he was very close to having his ninja career ended. Kiba hung his head, finally feeling a little shame at what he did, but whether it was for himself or those he aimed to hurt was unknown. Can I at least court Hinata now? She is no longer a Hyuga or clan heir, so there shouldn't be any issues with us getting together. Hana nearly jumped on him to beat him to death. Luckily for Kiba, one of the council members was close enough to catch her before she could land on him. Even without that, he was thrown back into a wall from her hand meeting his face. He sat there, stunned, against the wall as his hand went to his cheek where there were now 4 slash marks courtesy of Hana's elongated claws. You swine. Get it through your thick head. She doesn't want you. She was snarling now, and barely restrained. Enough. Instantly Hana was sitting once again as her mother's voice commanded obedience. Kiba, you will refrain from pursuing any female until we deem you worthy, and you are to seek approval of any prospective mates with us before you start chasing them. Rest assured that if you do not comply your punishment will be severe. Hana, heal your brother's wound. His retraining hasn't started yet. You can give it back to him later. Kiba shivered and Hana grinned evilly while she healed his cuts. Don't worry little brother. I'll make sure you get some nice marks to show off. Since we are this close to the Chunin exams, we will wait to schedule the retraining until we find out if you have been deemed worthy to enter. Despite your actions, we will not hurt the chances of your teammates to advance should your sensei see fit to nominate you. Knowing Hotake, he'll probably put you in just to see how well you do and to show you what would be expected of a Chunin rank ninja, so you have something to aim for. Just so you know, even if you should make Chunin, you will still be going through retraining. You've brought this on yourself, Kiba. Now get out of my sight. Even though she was his mother, it sickened her to think of just how low her son would sink. It was times like this that she wished Kiba had been born a girl. Sure, Hannah had her moments, but at least she didn't chase after every boy in town, hoping that they would fuck her. She shuddered involuntarily at the thought of what would have happened if that were the case. They would have needed to expand the compound if she'd accepted every invitation she'd gotten if she had the drive Kiba did. After Kiba left the room, Hannah turned to her mother. You know he's going to milk this for what it's worth. Since he knows he's already going to go through retraining, he'll do the same shit without fear of what could happen since it's going to happen anyway. Sume sighed, knowing her daughter was right. Well, Uzumaki-san knows he can contact me if things get out of hand. If I have to, I'll assign him guards to keep him in line until his sensei decides if they are ready for the exams or not. Until then, we have other things to worry about. Like your temper. Hannah looked down with a little shame at her prior actions, but refused to run in fear from her mother, as it was her duty to learn exactly what she had to be to accept her mother's seat someday. They had once again attacked the yard the next morning. Haku and Hinata worked on the garden while Naruto busied himself with repairing the training posts and cleaning out the pond in the meditation area. Around mid-morning they were brought out of their thoughts when Hinata suddenly shrieked. Haku and Naruto rushed to her aid to find her staring at a little bug on the leaf of ivy in front of where she had been working. Hinata-chan, what's wrong? It's just a little bug. It's one of Shino-san's Kikaichu. I think my team is looking for me. I completely forgot about team practice. She was up and running towards the house in an instant. You know she's right. I haven't done any training or missions since we got back from Wave. Haku-chan, we were given a week off, but I don't really think we should be sitting around too much. Oh, I forgot, Gigi-san wants to see us too. Arg, we'll have to work on this place on our days off. Otherwise we'll end up running out of money for food. Since Hinata-chan has team stuff anyway, we might as well see about some missions and such ourselves. You need to learn where that kind of stuff is too anyway, since you're still new here. Naruto and Haku ran off towards the house too as they all rushed to get into their ninja garb. They met again in the living room, with Hinata almost crashing into them as she was heading for the door. Sorry, I need to hurry. Naruto caught her on the arm as she tried to leave. Please Naruto-kun, I need to go or I'll be in more trouble than I already am. Hinata, you don't even have any weapons on you. What are you going to do if you have to go on a mission? I use Juken, so I'll be fine, please. No, I'm not letting either of you go out without gear. He ran upstairs quickly, relying on Haku to keep Hinata restrained until he came back. It only took him a minute, but Hinata was already frantic by the time he got back down. He tossed both of them a supplies pouch and a shuriken holder. Hinata didn't even take the time to strap them on as she bolted out the door. Haku and Naruto followed afterward and saw Hinata waiting impatiently at the front gate. It was still locked, and on the other side were her teammates and a somewhat annoyed-looking sensei. Sorry Hinata-chan, I forgot the gate was locked. Naruto put his arm past her and unlocked the gate, allowing her to rush out and bow in apologies to her team. Kurenai, having seen who was there, brushed it off. She had seen how close the two had gotten, but she wasn't about to get in their way. That was Hiyashi's problem. To her the two made a cute couple, she just hoped they weren't doing anything beyond their age. Seeing the other girl though, she brushed it off again as a pointless worry. Hinata, if you were going to skip out on training, you could have at least told someone where you were. It took us a few hours to find you. As a ninja, you have a responsibility to do missions with your team for the good of the village. I'm sure Uzumaki-san is grateful for the help with his mission, but that doesn't excuse you from slacking off. We will discuss your punishment later. She set cold eyes on the girl before turning to Naruto. Uzumaki-san, I thank you for looking after Hinata, but I believe you have duties to attend to as well. Hey. Yeah, a lot has happened in the past few days. Kinda slipped our minds. This caused eyebrows to raise on all of Team 8, save for Hinata, who knew exactly what he was talking about. Kurenai, however, narrowed her eyes at the boy dangerously. Uzumaki-san, I think I need to have a little chat with you if you don't mind. Sure. Come on in. You guys excuse us for a few minutes, we'll be right back. Naruto led Kurenai into the living room of the house and shut the door. Immediately the woman turned on him. Alright, spill it. First off, why do you have a key to this house? I know very well whose house this is and there is no way anyone should be in here. This is my house. Liar. The Hokage forbid anyone from purchasing this estate and to ensure that he bought it himself. It's in his name and it was sealed off. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her. Don't ever call me a liar. I do own this house and Hokage-sama is the one that sold it to me. If you don't believe me, you can go see him and look at the deed yourself. Oh, believe me, I will. And when he hears about this, you will have Anbu on your ass so fast you won't be able to make it 2 feet before you're in a cell. As much as I'd like to go with you and see your face when it falls, I have better things to do with my time, so unless you have something else to say. As a matter of fact, I do. As this is obviously not some mission you are on, what exactly are Hinata and that other girl doing here? She is the Hyuga heiress, and if you are doing anything indecent to her, even the Hokage won't save you from Hiyashi's wrath. Naruto started to laugh, confusing the woman. What the hell is so funny? Kurenai-san, the Hyuga wouldn't care if Hinata-chan died right now. In fact, they would probably prefer it. Kurenai stepped back in shock. You seem to be behind the times, which is kind of unacceptable considering you're her sensei, but I'll fill you in on why exactly Hinata hasn't been around for training in a while. First of all, the day I got back from my mission to Wave, we 3 were attacked. Haku-chan and Hinata-chan were poisoned and spent the night in the hospital. I'm surprised you didn't know at least that much. Anyhow, Hiyashi-tem. That's Hiyashi-sama brat. Oh, don't worry, you'll be calling him a tem soon too. Now, Hiyashi-tem found out that Hinata-chan and I were together and he ordered her to stay away from me. When Hinata declined, he and the Hyuga Council completely cut ties with her. Hinata-chan is no longer a Hyuga by their own laws. Kurenai fell backwards into a chair. She couldn't believe what she just heard. How could a father disown his daughter for seeing a boy? She suddenly had the urge to throw up when she realized she encouraged Hinata's actions. Even though the girl would have continued anyway, it didn't make her feel any better. Well, they tried to put a very harmful seal on her, worse than the one on their branch members. Haku-chan saved her though and brought her to my apartment. That was just after I had acquired this house. I found them there when I went to pick up some of my stuff and brought them both here. I couldn't let them out in the village after I heard what happened. I knew the Hyuga would be after them. When I got them here, I went to see Hokage-sama and found out why the Hyuga hadn't been searching extensively yet. Hiyashi and the other clan heads were in a meeting with Hokage-sama. Long story short, I explained why they couldn't put a seal on Hinata-chan since they threw her out before they applied it. It would have been an assault on a fellow Konoha ninja. After that, we just kind of hung around here and kept ourselves busy cleaning up the place to keep our minds off of recent events. I guess we just lost track of time. She could certainly see why someone would want to be distracted after all that, and the place looked a lot cleaner than she'd expected now that she thought about it. She couldn't prove the boy was lying, but it did seem far-fetched for the Hyuga to oust their own heir. I will trust you for now, Naruto-san, but I intend to verify this with Hokage-sama. Please do. From now on, if you can't find Hinata, or if you need her for a mission, stop by here. Since she can't go back to the Hyuga, she is living with me. At the glare from the woman, he sighed. Don't worry. Separate bedrooms, and she doesn't have to pay anything. Same goes for Haku-chan. Since she doesn't really have a place to go and I had another room, so she's living here too. See, one big happy family. He gave her his best grin, slightly breaking the tension. Kurenai got dangerously close to him. If I ever find out you hurt her, Anbu will be the least of your worries. He turned his head to talk to her in a similar seriousness. If I ever hurt her, you won't have a chance to touch me, as I will already have punished myself far worse than you could think of doing. The coldness in his voice sent shivers down her spine. How he could stand to meet her glare so easily and send one out that nearly overwhelmed her, she would never understand. She only moved after he was already holding the door open for her, once again smiling as those waiting at the gate waited for them. Glad we got that cleared up, Kurenai-san. Now I wouldn't want to keep you from your training. With a beaming smile he led her to the gate and waited until she was through to lock it behind them. Now if you'll excuse us, we have missions to do. Team 8 watched as the newly expanded Team 11 took off towards the mission center. Shino-san, Harem-chan, head to the mission center as well please and grab a good one for us. I need to talk to Hinata-chan a moment. The two nodded and walked off. Once they were out of sight, Kurenai turned to the girl who had regained her rare habit of poking her fingers together. Hyuga Hinata, she started, but soon lost the rest of her sentence. Kurenai-sensei, please don't call me that. I am no longer of that clan. She was shocked. If that was true, how much else that Naruto said was true? She suddenly dropped to her knees, startling Hinata a bit, then surprising the girl as she hugged her close. I'm sorry for doubting it, Hinata. I'm sorry for scolding you. There will be no punishment, you deserve to have the time off. It must be difficult. I just want to know why I wasn't told about this sooner. She had expected sob, a wet feeling on her shoulder and distraught whimpering. She got none of the above and soon looked at the girl with questioning eyes. Don't feel sorry for me, sensei. I am happier here than I ever was at the Hyuga compound. Hinata beamed a smile that showed nothing but sincerity, and it soon spread to Kurenai's face as well. Well, let's not keep Shino-san and Harem-chan waiting then. They might start the mission without us. Nodding, Hinata took off, making her sensei have to catch up to her for once. Well, whatever the case, thank you Naruto for taking care of her. At least she's happy. Haku couldn't help but doubt Naruto's overeagerness at first. When they had gotten to the mission hall, he didn't even hesitate as he picked out over a dozen missions from the D rank pile. After a short explanation of the ranking system, she was already wondering why he would choose something so easy when they could do a C rank for more money. She got her answer as soon as they left the hall, and he created a massive number of clones. He handed out their duties as he left the most physically demanding one to himself and Haku. They ended up digging a trench around some guy's property to reroute part of a nearby stream to make his place look nice. With the help of more clones, they were finished by lunch and back inside the mission hall. Haku was still a little amazed that all the clones had finished their tasks as well, so they now stood in front of the poor Chunin that had to tally all of the missions. All total, they had done enough missions to equal the payout of a mid-C rank. The main difference was that they didn't even have to leave the village for it, and it only took half a day. Excuse me, could you tell me what mission Team 8 got? The Chunin looked up at Naruto, gauging what the boy was after. They were sent on a low C rank to guard some paranoid businessman on a week-long vacation to Southern Fire Country. Should be an easy one, but man, I wish I could have been so lucky. An all-expenses-paid vacation as a mission. I envy them. I see. Thank you. Naruto turned around and started to walk out of the room. On their way out of the building, they bumped into Team 7 again. Luckily their sensei was with them, so there was little they could do. Not that they were any real threat at all. Kakashi-san, getting your mission for the day, huh? Actually, Dobi, we just finished. Tore the pain, and before lunch. That's right, Baka. Even Kiba actually came in use for once since he could track the furball down. Sasuke-kun did all the real work though since he caught the beast. Kiba meanwhile was at the back, trying to keep the cat from sinking its claws into his face more than it already had. Hey, why even bother telling him about it? If he ever gets this mission, he would be out there all month just trying to find the thing. There would probably be a mission assigned to find him. Not that anyone cares enough to look for him. Nay, Kakashi-san, the Jonin looked up from his book, which rather surprised his team since he never did that when they talked to him. Make sure you take your team to the record boards. They might have been close to the top. Kakashi just smiled at him as Team 11 walked away from the building. Outside, Haku turned to her teammate. Why boost their ego like that, and half a day to catch a cat? The cat would have to be invisible for that to even be a challenge. Naruto just chuckled. Tora is the bane of all Konoha genin teams. It's the fire daimyo's wife's cat. She basically tortures the thing with kindness and it runs away every chance it gets, which sometimes means multiple times a day if it's caught fast enough. After running from ninjas so often, it's picked up some decent evasion skills. Okay, that still doesn't explain why you stroke their egos. Because the higher you are the farther you have to fall. Huh. I'm the holder of the record for catching Tora. It was my first mission and I completed it in less than 30 minutes. Solo. That did it. Haku was on the ground laughing as she tried to visualize the faces of Team 7 when they saw the record board. She wasn't denied as they saw Team 7 walking, or rather stomping out of the mission building. When they noticed the two laughing, they sent them death glares and looked ready to jump in for an attack, but a quick word from Kakashi and they sent one last glare before continuing on, with Kakashi giving them a smiling wave as he marched his team away. This of course sent Haku into more fits of laughter for another 10 minutes before Naruto was finally able to get her settled. Oh, that was classic. I wish we had a picture for that moment. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard. Haku exclaimed as she wiped the tears from her eyes. Well, now that we've had our comedic relief, what say we go get some food before we get our afternoon missions? Afternoon missions? What, you thought that was it? Hell no. I have two beautiful women to support now. I'm going to need some money. Haku just laughed again and kissed him on the cheek before they walked off towards the food stands. The next 2 days went pretty much the same way. Missions in the morning, lunch, more missions, dinner, then an hour or so working on the grounds of the estate before they bathed and went to bed. The monotony was broken only a few times when they would cross paths with one of the other teams and stopped for a quick chat, or to trade a few barbs. Haku was soon amazed by the amount of money they were getting, not that they would be considered rich by any means. At the same time though, she felt a little guilty that it was really Naruto doing most of the work even if he was using clones. On the third day they got a pleasant surprise in the afternoon when the Met team ate in the mission hall. They looked a little tired and Kurenai looked very pissed. Ignoring the mood, Naruto rushed over to Hinata and gave her a kiss. I thought you were going to be gone a whole week. Anyo, something happened and we ended up failing our mission and coming back early. Hinata blushed a bit and turned her head away. Kurenai was more than happy to explain though. What happened was that fat bastard of a businessman thought we were his slaves in the full sense. He tried getting fresh with me and I let him off with a firm warning, but when I caught him trying to grope Hinata and Harem, let's just say I made my point perfectly clear that ninja were not his personal escort service. She huffed and turned back to the scared Chunin that was in charge of missions for the day. She broke both his wrists, 2 ribs and his left leg. She also knocked out 4 of his teeth, gave him 2 black eyes, a busted lip and possibly a concussion. His vacation was cut short so we failed and now we're back. Harem wasn't nearly as nice about her description. She had always been blunt and straight to the point. The one that shocked him though, was Shino. It was scary. The boy had no emotion in his voice, but from the blanching of his skin it was clearly something that he hadn't wanted to see. Naruto stepped away from Hinata and bowed low. I thank you Kurenai-san, for protecting that which is precious to me. Kurenai smiled at the gesture. It was my pleasure Naruto-san. Now since that's done with, we'll need a mission for today please. It'll have to be something D rank though since we just got back. The Chunin nodded and dug into the stack. To Kurenai's dismay it was catching Tora. You don't have something a little faster? Oh don't worry Kurenai-san, Tora is easy. Let's see, it's just after 1 so that would put her around training ground 12. If you leave now you should just be able to get her before she moves. If she does move you'll have to wait about 20 minutes then she'll be at the dumpster behind the fish market. The mouths of everyone in the room just dropped open as they stared at the boy. Well thank you Naruto-san. I guess we'll take that one then. Composing themselves Team 8 left with their now very easy mission. That was nice of you Naruto-san, but how do you know where Tora will be? The Chunin asked, still a bit perplexed. Oh, we kind of set up a few meeting spots for me to pet her. She has to move often though so whatever team is looking for her loses track. Have to defend my title after all. So basically you could have taken that mission and finished it in minutes. Haku asked. Well yeah, but if you'd seen how she gets treated you'd want her to be free as much as possible too. Pity though. Since they stalled they missed her. Guess they won't be breaking my record this time. Haku and the Chunin just sweat dropped. Well since Hinata-chan is back early how about we call it a day then and we'll celebrate her team getting the second best record. The couple smiled as they walked out of the room leaving one very confused Chunin. They just walked around for a while and ended up being right on time to catch Team 8 leaving the mission hall. Hinata ran up and planted a hard kiss on him. Thank you Naruto-kun. Now we have the second best record for Tora. Hi. Thank you Naruto-san. Without your assistance we would have had a much longer mission. Hey it wasn't outright emotions, but it was still appreciation from the bug boy. Kurenai was all smiles. Sure they had a little help, but her team was now on a record board and she couldn't be happier. Well maybe if they hadn't missed the cat in the training field. Oh how she would brag to her peers tonight. Well since we got that done you are all free for the rest of the day. Get some sleep tonight because tomorrow is a training day. Thank you once again Naruto-san. Your help was greatly appreciated. No problem. So Hinata-chan, Haku-chan. Let's go get washed up and celebrate. The three dashed off towards their home and in no time they had washed the day's grime off and were dressed for a casual night out. They soon found a decent barbecue restaurant and decided that was where they would eat. It was one of the few places that Naruto wouldn't get tossed out of, even though he would get some glares, so it was better than most of the other places in his opinion. When they were seated they soon found that they were right behind another genin team from Naruto and Hinata's academy class. Team 10 was eating at their normal table, mostly watching as Choji sucked down mouthfuls of meat. After placing their own orders, they couldn't help but listen to the loud conversation that was going on next door. So I heard that Sasuke-kun's team was going to go to the Chunin exams. He's so cool. He must be so good at missions that they didn't have a choice but to move him to higher difficulty missions, and the only way they could was by watching him beat the snot out of a bunch of other genin so he could be promoted. I even heard that his team finished a C rank turned A rank mission. Sasuke-kun is so cool. If the voice had a little more screeching to it they would have easily guessed it as belonging to Sakura, but the bobbing platinum blonde ponytail made it obvious that it was Sasuke's other self-proclaimed #1 fan, Yamanaka Ino. Ino-san please keep it down it would be troublesome if you were overheard. Nom 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 nom. You know, I was thinking of getting you 3 entered in the Chunin exams too. Sarutobi Asuma had to be one of the laziest senseis ever, but he seemed to fit his team perfectly. That would be so cool. Me taking the Chunin exams with Sasuke-kun. Maybe if I get to fight that bitch Sakura I can show him how strong I've become. Yeah, let's do it. Had Shikamaru not fallen asleep and Choji been paying attention to more than his food they may have disagreed, but as it was they ended up with no say in the matter. Being his team, Asuma had to make the final judgment call, something he never really liked doing since it took too much brain work for his liking. He just shrugged. Okay I'll get you the forms tomorrow. With a Sakura-like shriek Ino startled half the restaurant including her 2 teammates who just realized something happened that they wouldn't like. Troublesome. Naruto just chuckled at their antics and shook his head. They'll soon find out that the Chunin exams aren't all fun and games. If Shikamaru had any motivation at all he'd probably kill Ino and his sensei. You don't think they're ready for it Naruto-kun? Not really. Then why not tell them it's a bad idea? 2 reasons. 1 they need to experience it so Ino understands what being a ninja really means, and 2 Shikamaru will keep them out of trouble. He may be lazy but he's an expert at getting out of things he finds too troublesome, and believe me he would find a fight too troublesome. Their food arrived shortly after and they were soon enjoying the barbecue feast. Due to Choji's appetite they were finished well before Team 10 and left for home without the other genin knowing they were even there. In minutes they were inside on the couch in the living room. Naruto sat in the middle with a girl on each side cuddled up to him under some blankets as he read over a random jutsu scroll. One of the few that had been left in the house. About halfway through he remembered something and turned to Haku whose eyes were drooping dangerously. Haku-chan, we need to go see what Hokage Gigi wants us for tomorrow. A half-asleep aha was all he got, and he chuckled as he kissed the top of her head. He would deal with it in the morning, it wasn't that important, and he already had a feeling what it was about anyway. Turning, he gave an already asleep Hinata a kiss as well before settling back into his scroll. In less than an hour he joined them in dreamland as they stayed cuddled together on the couch without a care in the world. The next day Naruto woke feeling a little uncomfortable. As he blinked open his eyes, he looked around trying to register where exactly the feeling was coming from. He was still on the couch and covered by blankets, but the heads that had been next to him the night before were nowhere to be found. Shrugging it off, he threw the blankets to the side and froze. He was now wide awake as he found the source of his discomfort. The two missing heads were laying on his thighs while two small hands encircled his third leg through his pants. He tried to hold back the nosebleed, but there was no holding back the beet red blush as he twitched in their grasp. He could only pray that he found a way out of this before they woke up. Luckily he didn't have to worry about it too much as the two girls rose as one and began rubbing the sleep out of their eyes, successfully removing their hands from him without even realizing it. Before they could get their bearings, he quickly kissed them and excused himself so they wouldn't see his arousal as he dashed up the steps and into his room. 30 minutes and one breakfast later they were all dressed and ready for their day, with neither of the girls being the wiser of the morning's events. Hinata's team once again picked her up at the gate as they went to pick up their daily mission. Meanwhile Naruto told Haku once again that they needed to see the Hokage first, and they sped off towards the tower. They entered with no problems as the secretary was too tired this early to even look up from the appointments book as she waved them through. Inside the office Sarutobi sat working diligently on his morning paperwork until he heard the door open. He wasn't used to getting visitors this early, but was pleasantly surprised to see Naruto and Haku as they entered through the door. "You wanted to see us, Gigi-san." "Ah, Naruto-kun, Haku-chan. I hadn't expected you this early in the morning, though I must admit I did expect you to come before today. No matter though. Here, I need you to fill out these forms, Haku-chan, and then I need both of you to fill out these." He handed Haku a few sheets of paper, then handed a single sheet to both of the genin. For Haku, the small stack was basically her swearing in for her ninja duties. Something the old man had obviously forgotten. A few signatures later and she handed them back to him without a second thought and happily received her official Hittite. The other sheet was exactly what Naruto had expected based on what he had overheard in the restaurant from Team 10. It was a registration form for the Chunin exams. There were a few things on it that he had to question though as he read through the rules. "I assume these will be modified for our unique situation." "Ah, yes, for you of course won't have a third teammate, so just forget about what those say, and the part about the Jonin sensei, and the part about needing 3 people to pass to the next portion, and well, basically it'll all be set to allow for your situation, so don't worry about it." Getting a satisfied nod from the blonde, he soon had 2 completed and signed registration forms on his desk. He gave them their identification cards with one last piece of advice. "I suggest you both train hard from now until the exams. These will be against ninja from other villages as well as our own, so familiarize yourself with their possible techniques as much as possible. You are the most likely to succeed out of all those that have been nominated this year as far as I'm concerned, so do your best. Don't worry, Hokage-sama, with Naruto-kun and myself working together we shall breeze through the exam with ease." Haku said with an air of confidence. "I do hope so." The two left the office with a bow and made their way to the mission hall. Just because the Hokage said they should train hard didn't mean they had to slack off on their missions. They would keep it to mornings only though as much as possible. They kept their D ranks simple so that they wouldn't waste energy, easily finishing before lunch, and leaving for home. "If we're going to spend more time training we should probably get some food to keep at the house. That way we aren't leaving for every meal. Besides, it would be nice to actually use the kitchen for more than cereal every once in a while. I'll go for some supplies this afternoon and we'll work out a training schedule this evening." Haku said as they made their way through the village. "All right. I had been meaning to do a little chore for a while now anyways. Tell you what. Here's some money. You go get yourself some lunch and supplies and I'll go start my task. We'll meet back at the house for dinner. I'll be in and out all afternoon in case you get back early." They separated to their tasks as Haku went towards the center of town and Naruto headed, oddly, towards their house. It wasn't until he was halfway to his destination that he realized that his lair was only a block away from where he now lived. Thinking back to what the lair was originally used for, it sent a slight shiver down his spine that no one even knew it was there, or what had been happening literally right under their feet. It's about lunchtime though, so no one should be around, but what about later? What can I do to make sure people aren't nosing around where they shouldn't be? Ah, got it. Making a quick detour, he stopped at a storage shed of the maintenance department to grab some supplies. Some paint and stencil work later. He had just what he needed to ensure some privacy. Heading back to the entrance to his lair, he set out the barriers he made around the area. Each clearly stated, "Caution. Sewage leak." If that didn't deter someone, then he would question their ideas of an enjoyable atmosphere. He ducked into his second home and began the somewhat slow process of sealing up the numerous scrolls that he planned on taking with him. He also grabbed some history texts so Haku would have something to read to get to know about the village she was now a part of. Along with the literature, he stashed away some of his weapons stash. It wouldn't do for them to have nothing readily available, and now that Hinata didn't have a supply from her clan, she would need a place to get hers from. As he worked, he set everything into a wooden box to ensure a safe journey to his house. Not that he couldn't defend his own property, but it would just be easier this way. By the time he filled the box, he had only stored about 1/20th of what he had here of scrolls and texts, and barely touched the weapons. He also sealed up his small smithy, his sealing supplies, and some of his training equipment. Closing, sealing, and locking the box, he left the lair, locking everything up behind him. He now had enough to cover most of the sections of shelves in his new library, and the weapons would be fine in storage until needed. As he headed back to the surface, he had to duck down as he saw Team 7 passing by. Unfortunately, he wasn't fast enough as Kiba's eye caught his blonde hair as he ducked behind a nearby bush. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video, as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out my other playlists. Hope you would like them too.